So that's 65. Oh, TTM. Okay, folks, I'm going to go ahead and just kick this thing off. Thank you for coming to the Anchorage VMUG. It's a little late today. I'll be trying to control the camera. We've finally got that working here for this time. We've got the audio worked out to where you should be able to better hear everybody in the room if you're on the phone call. What I have here on the screen is both sets of mine are social media handles and how to reach us on either LinkedIn or on Twitter. We're both pretty active. I would say VMware in general is pretty active on Twitter. So if you don't have any ambitions to get out there and necessarily involve yourself with the rest of social media and everything that goes on, the tech feeds out there are really, really useful, and especially on the security side, you'll get flash updates very quickly if something's happening at the other end of the world, or even on the Lower 48 before, you might be told up here that something has occurred or there's something to look out for. VMUG is also out there on social media, so we have our VMUG site where we have a LinkedIn group, and we also have a Twitter handle, and you can reach Seth or I via anchorage@vmug.com. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that. Today we've got Dell and VMware here to give us a couple presentations. We did take the feedback from the last meetings and wanted to start kind of going towards small, medium business and how to enable software-defined data centers in those type of areas, especially for Alaska. We do recognize that that's where we want to enable our members to be successful at, given Alaska's current state with economics and everything else. I am trying to get a hold of some books for everybody, so the next time, let people know. You guys probably on the call can't see it, but there is a book, you can download this. It's called SD-WAN, the Networking Blueprint for the Modern Business. This goes over Velo Cloud and how to implement it within your company. And then there's another one called Building VMware NSX Power Clouds and Data Centers for Small to Medium Business. And these are two topics that we'll be going over today as part of our VMUG. So if you guys want these links or book titles, I will throw it up into the chat for WebEx so everybody can have those. But we will be getting hard copies for folks hopefully by the next meeting in November.
Jeremy, can we pass those around if people are interested in seeing?
Oh, yeah.
If you're interested.
So since we got such small folks, I think we'll just go around the room and introduce ourselves, and then we'll go ahead and start off with Dell giving their presentation here. So, I'm Jeremy Mayfield. I'm the VMUG leader. I now work for GCI.
Andrew Cronin, VMware SE, focused on security and attacks.
My name is Eric Emerton. I'm the resident Dell EMC sales engineer.
I'm Nick Schmidt. I'm a network engineer for GCI.
John Graham, systems engineer for GCI.
Grant Thurston, sysadmin for Siri.
I'm Ben Stewart. I work for CTG as a consultant.
Seth Crosby, I'm another one of the VMUG leaders.
Mike Lane, systems administrator at Anchorage Neighborhood Health Center.
And then folks on the phone, you just want to give a quick intro. We want to start with Claude. Everybody else is kind of muted. All right, Gerald, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Gerald Johnson, Project Manager at GCI. I'm just lurking to learn more.
Okay, well, we know you guys, appreciate it, thank you. Do you want to, Eric, you want to go ahead and?
Yeah.
Kick things off?
You just give me about 30 seconds to get set up, and we will rock and roll.
And for you guys on the phone, if you have any questions, just shoot them in the chat, and we'll get them addressed. If there's anything complex, you know, obviously speak up, and we'll go through it.
This new USB-C world we're in just means you have to have more adapters than us, so that's okay. One day we'll all live in Nirvana and have one input to rule them all. Who am I kidding? That's not how this works. That's okay.
I really embrace USB-C.
Okay, so, Jeremy, what do I gotta do here? Share my screen, or? Share content. Share. See if you guys can see that. This mark up here. Another big question is whether you see my. You probably see my
Presentation mode.
presentation.
Yeah. That's so exciting.
How about that action? Boom. Okay, so a couple things to get started. First of all, my name is Eric. Like I mentioned, my official title is Solutions Consultant, which is just a silly way of saying pre-sales engineer. My job, I have named accounts in Alaska, so I cover all of the public sector, so municipalities up to the state, as well as education and some healthcare as well. That's on one side of the business for one salesperson. And on the other side of the business, I cover small to medium-sized businesses. They're named accounts, so any larger business that's headquartered in Alaska, all the native corps, et cetera, so I cover all of them as well. So you may fall into those buckets. If you don't fall into one of those buckets, you can feel free to reach out to me. I won't be able to get you closer stuff, but I'll at least get you in the right direction, and I can help out with technical questions. At the end of the day, I still consider myself a brand representative. I represent Dell, so I'm here to help with questions and things like that. A little bit about me. I'm a long-term Alaskan. I've been here 28 years this week, actually. It came up on a cold October in 1990. Since then, I've spent 10 years working Native Corp, actually here at Siri. I'm working for Dell 2.5 years, so master's degree UAA, and my undergrad for that matter. My wife owns a small business here in town, so you know, we're very community-minded and love it in Alaska. So that's my story. I've done a lot of different things in IT, project management, operations management, sysanalyst, sysadmin, desktop, help desk, gopher, everything in between. So quick shout out to Siri IT for getting this room all set up for us, and I think it's pretty nice. So I know all of us in IT, our favorite job is AV, so always got to give the guys on the ground the extra kudos for that. So looking at kind of the schedule that we sent out, first of all, anytime during this, I don't want this to be a formal thing. I speak to a lot of CIOs and like business groups and trade organizations and stuff like that, and it's very stuffy. You guys are my people, so please just stop me. I'd rather have like a Socratic conversation than just me up here blabbering away and pitching you guys' pitching products to you guys. So stop me anytime if you have questions, if you think I'm full of it, whatever it is, just let me know. But we talked a little bit about, it was mentioned IT transformation or digital transformation. Who here just in person has heard that term before, usually followed by a sales pitch of something really expensive? Okay, well, if not, that I can come to your office and give you that sales pitch. I'm glad to do that. I did want to show this off to you. It's a slide deck that I used for a CIO summit that we do every year for directors and senior IT leadership. And I remember when I was doing sysadmin work and even manager work, I would always be curious what the bosses were being told. What were they being pitched? What was being said to them? We'd have vendors in every now and then who would blow right past the IT department and go straight up to the C-suites, and that would always concern me. So I thought I would just add a little transparency to you, show you just a couple slides of some of the stuff that I do show to kind of the higher level management teams at IT, so you can get an idea of what we're talking about. Some of you might consider this fluff because it doesn't have a lot of hardware specs. I'm really not pitching anything in particular in this slide deck. I'll just throw you a couple slides just to get a flavor of what's being talked about in the industry and where a lot of folks who didn't come from IT backgrounds, they leverage this stuff more than I do. If I come into your office, you probably won't see this slide deck. But anyway, so let me turn on my little thing here. By the way, I went big and bought the green laser pointer. That's the show of success. It's the green laser pointer, in case you guys didn't know. You're in the market. So this is one of these slides. They're all marketing slides, right? What we're getting at is there's a lot more data coming out. There's a lot more speeds and feeds. And you guys have probably seen this, right? It's not so much, it used to just be we need to present data to our employees or customers or whoever it is, right? But now there's been an increase in working with marketing teams, working with CFOs and other data analysts and people who don't just want you to provide them the information, they want actionable intelligence. They want you to take that information, distill it into something that they can use, right? One of the issues is as we're getting like Internet of Things and all these other devices, we're getting lots of other, I mean, if you guys have done any log management or Splunk or anything like that, you realize this VMware's log insight system. You're getting data from all over the place, right? And that's great. Firewall logs really don't tell you much unless you have some way to distill them down and get actionable information. So, ooh, that's pretty. Yeah, let's get on that one. So that's kind of what this slide is talking about. It's just that we have a lot of data. And talking about, too, like, with the advent of the smartphone, our focus, our attention span has actually been reduced by a third. It used to be 12 seconds, now it's 8 since smartphones have become popular. So that's actually less than what a goldfish has. So I can keep your attention, if I can keep it for 9 seconds, I'm beating the average, which makes me feel pretty good. So, and 80% of people want to telecommunicate, which, as you guys know, as IT people, has put a strain on how we manage that, how we secure it, how we protect it, and how we get people access to what they need. And then 90% of all data ever produced by human beings has come in the last 2 years. So you're starting to see these trends, right? They're starting to come together. A lot of data, people want to be able to get data anywhere. They want to be able to get data quickly because their attention spans are so short. And there's way more threats out there too, right? So it's just like compounding what you have to do to make this all work. The thought here is you can look at this as a problem, as how are we going to fix every one of these things, or you can look at it as like let's do what we can to provide the business more of these opportunities, and that's where the whole concept of digital transformation comes from. Not trying to fix these problems, but to create these solutions. So it's a mindset. I recognize that, and a lot of it's marketing talk. And you guys have all heard the Uber pitch, I'm sure, right? Born in the web world, completely transformed how we look at taxis and transportation, things like that. You hear that from all these other Fortune 500 companies. Even like Ford CEO says, we're not a car manufacturer, we're a data company that sells cars, right? sounds great for shareholders, they love that crap. But the truth of the matter is, companies that were formed prior to the internet have a lot of systems, integrations. I mean, I think of we had a guy working for us for a while. He worked at a beer plant prior to coming to us, and all the systems were just analog switches, right? Bottle runs through the system this way, bottle runs through the system that way. It was never tied to a networking system outside of SCADA. So a lot of these things are kind of new for these legacy industry-style companies, like GEs of the world, stuff like that. So being able to transform, being able to get these systems online into these log-generating, analytics-based systems only help you and move you faster along, right? That's the concept. So a couple things that Dell considers, like what are we talking about, right? Like at the end of the day, applications. Customers and users need access to the application. They don't care about what's under the hood. They don't care about how you delivered it. They just care about opening up the app and getting the experience. What VMware has done a really good job recognizing, and props to them, going to VMworld for the last, I don't know, 8, 9 years, however long it's been, is they've been on top of the app game for a very, very long time. And they've kind of been agnostic when it comes to where apps come from, whether they are dished up from a data center, whether they're SaaS-based applications like Salesforce that just need some sort of single sign-on connection. It doesn't matter where the app lives. The important thing is that the user is getting access to the apps quickly and seamlessly. That's the end game, right? Dell recognizes that. That's a couple concepts. That's what we're trying to deliver. But applications live in these. If I can get the animation to show. In the cloud. And now what cloud means, and for the last 10 years, IT has been battling this term cloud, trying to explain it to people, what it means, and what Microsoft thinks it is, and what Google thinks it is, and what Amazon thinks it is. And what is a cloud, right? Dell considers it an operating model, right? It's a distributed operating model allowing you to parse out applications and different resources to different things, right? That's why they talk about the private cloud versus the public cloud. So it's not private cloud, they're talking about normally your data center or data centers that are able to dish out chunks of resources to different things, right? Applications live on those clouds, public or private. And then clouds run on infrastructure. No matter where you put your application, in what cloud that is, there's some underlying piece of hardware somewhere that's running that, right? And Dell, we push buttons, we do, right? We sell hardware. There's other things too, but infrastructure matters, and that's what I do. And then users connect all that over the top. And that's where you talk about all those people wanting to work from home or remotely. Actually, there's a big push now for the millennial generation who are now getting the management positions. Big driver in where they go to work has to do with that they get choice in their technology. So being able to choose a type of laptop, desktop, tablet, phone, those kind of things matter to them. So if you're out there with Windows phones given to your employees, call pilots. And then security. So this right here, and this is kind of where I'm going to stop because I could go on and on about like pitching products and stuff. This is that digital transformation message, right? The concept that if you can grab all of these different components, pieces, and bring them together and understand how the applications need to be distributed out, can more quickly and agile get those applications to the users. Now, Dell's opinion is the best way to do that is through hyperconverged appliances. I'm going to talk about those a little bit, but that's not the only way to do it, right? You can also build it yourself. We have this kind of concept that's called the build to buy continuum. The concept is like you can go and research and get a bill of materials and build a private cloud yourself with connections to public clouds, all the software, and you can do that yourself today. Walk out of here, go on Google, build yourself your own VMware cloud, right? There's different parts along the trail where you can start there. Maybe we give you the bill of materials. Here, this is all certified from VMware, buy these things. Or maybe it's, we'll put it all together for you, put it all in the cart, all you have to do is install the VMware software. Or maybe it's that you literally put a bow on it for you, walk away with the vCenter license, or the vCenter logins, and storage in motion, and you're off to the races, right? So there's all these things along the way, and you can look at all these different numbers to say like, oh, well, there's cost savings here because our employees don't have to manage this stuff. or there's cost saving here, so we don't have to spend as much on the hardware. It's definitely one of those things where, as businesses, as well as the folks who I normally talk to about the high level stuff, they're looking at OpEx versus CapEx, and like where does the company let me spend money? You know, because those things matter for people. So I wish I could say there was just a right answer to this, but there's not. So understanding it from your perspective and how it's purchased does help when, you know, budgetary time comes around and you start hearing words like we're CapEx focused, we're OpEx focused. That might help you steer the discussion a certain way. So,
if I can, while you're making the transition, you know, and that's something that the VMware user group really wants to enable for the community, right? Is that what we're trying to do by bringing people like Eric here from Dell and Andrew from VMware, and just, you know, for our future discussions, we've got kind of 3 sessions that we want to do on just kind of software-defined data center and SDD and digital transformation, is to show that no matter where you are budget-wise with your infrastructure and your environment, there are things that you can do to enable this journey to make your company more agile, more responsive to the needs, and start going down the software-defined track. Even if you have to buy a typical SAN array, you know, there's components like vVols that will allow you to do some of that software-defined. There are always you know, if you're a Cisco shop, you know, there are ways to do ACI. There's better ways, maybe for some folks, to do NSX. It just all depends on, again, what you're trying to achieve, where you're trying to go in your journey, and, you know, we're trying to show you at least get you on that path and get you to start thinking about some of those things that you can do.
yeah, that's a great point. So Dell is the #1 server manufacturer on the planet, right? We sell a lot of servers. We have a lot of types of servers, right? So even from this, you may not be ready for software-defined storage, right? Which is what hyperconverged is. It's software-defined storage. The one we lead with, the best foot forward, is vSAN on VxRail. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But you may not be ready for that. You know, I have some customers who are still working towards getting a SAN in place. They're still putting stuff on individual servers. You know, so and they're not ready to take that leap from there straight into software-defined storage. Totally get it, no judgment. The storage market is still very healthy, and the developers are still very hard at work in creating the next-gen platforms for us. So, you know, our compellent line is very powerful. Our Unity line, same deal. And I mean, like we purchased EMC 2 years ago, so we've got best-in-class storage across the board, right? Whether you're Dow Jones and you're buying VMAXs that have like 0 downtime ever, you know, all the way down to our MD arrays if you just need cheap and deep storage to store archival or whatever on. You know, we've got full gamut available. And so, you know, like my job to help you guys out is more just to give you the knowledge you have and then help do some load testing to see like what makes the most sense economically for you guys. So to that point, Dell MC, hyperconverged infrastructure. So hyperconverged infrastructure, let's just see how this slide deck plays out. We're going to go straight into VxRail appliances. Hyperconverged comes in a couple different flavors. The one that's kind of leading the pack right now, not just as far as Dell is concerned, but the industry as a whole, is VxRail. VxRail originally came from a product called EvoRail, which VMware had, and it was licensed out to a bunch of different vendors, Dell being one of them. HP had one, Supermicro had one, a couple other vendors. It didn't take off. There was a bunch of reasons for why it didn't take off. Had some overlays on it. It wasn't using vSAN, it was using some other, well, it was just a port version of vSAN. Required you buy all the licensing, everything up front. You kind of had to buy it all in one big chunk. So it was expensive, and if you already had VMware licensing, it was really hard to justify it, right? It quickly got, internally, VMware got turned into EvoFail, and so what ended up happening was given to the VCE team, right, which was a group originally created by VMware, Cisco, and EMC to create these kind of converged platforms, right? You're taking compute, you're taking EMC, storage, and kind of bundling it together in this package. So the IP was kind of given to this group inside of EMC to figure out what do you this is a marketable thing. This is a quality product. It has good technology. It's just we need to figure out how to best get it so it can be consumed by users, right? And so out of that came VxRail. The first gen was a standalone 4-bay 2U appliance, held 4 servers. And you could stack those, but that's what it was. It was made by another competing company called Quanta. After the Dell acquisition, we quickly got this code put onto the PowerEdge servers, and that's what we have today. So we'll talk a little bit about how this works, right? And one of the big reasons why you would look at hyper-converged over a traditional SAN server array, right? The big concept here is that you're not, in a SAN world, first of all, you have to buy it outright. It's rare that you could buy a SAN right size for your environment, right? If you're going to spend the big bucks to get a storage array, you're going to put a whole bunch of headroom in it. So like this will get me through 3 to 5 years. I have a discussion with customers all the time, right? I need enough to grow, right? And then 3 to 5 years comes and you're not going to add a couple disks, you're going to add a whole other shelf. And you might add another 20 or 30%, hoping for another couple of years, right? And that's kind of how you do it. And on the compute side, the compute side's kind of the same way, right? You have to buy servers, in chunks or whatever you need. In a hyper-converged world, because the disk is actually on the servers themselves, you take away that requirement for large storage purchases every time, right? You can add a couple disks at a time to each one of the servers and expand your entire SAN. That's as simple as it is. Just add a couple disks, increases the volume, and you're done. So the nice thing is when you originally look at doing hyperconverged, you can kind of right-size it to your environment today, right? What are the needs today? What are the needs for the next year, right? And then scale out annually. And it's not gonna be this huge capex charge. So this is VxRail. It's a marketing slide. Deploys faster, and I'll talk a little bit why it deploys faster. So all of this runs on VMware's vSAN technology. vSAN is the virtualized storage appliance that's running on the hardware. It's vSphere, right? So it's ESXi, just straight up vanilla ESXi with a license applied to it that gives you access to vSAN. The vSAN program itself is embedded in the kernel of ESXi, so you're not actually installing any additional software to get these storage systems to run. It's just a license, right? But what VxRail does is it takes all of that data, and it takes all of the work required to manage vSAN, vSphere, drivers, firmware updates, security patches, all of that stuff that you normally have to do, and brings it into one centralized managed appliance, right? So today, let's just use a basic example of upgrading to a new rev of VMware, a vSphere, right? You got vCenter, you got ESXi for every single one of your hosts. This is only after you pre-checked with the hardware compatibility list, right? And made sure that all the components inside of your server are certified. The HBAs, the procs, everything else is already good to go, network cards. Then you can start patching your servers, right? And what's the time frame on that? What does it look like to do that work? We've taken all those ideas and made it so it's a centralized, easy to manage, push this stuff out, right? So that's what a lower cost of operations has to do with. How much time are you actually spending turning knobs and cranking on wrenches, right? The idea is you can spend more time taking care of business needs and projects that the business is asking for. That was that whole digital transformation talk, right? That you're actually doing what the company's hoping you're doing, not just preparing for the next security patch. So there's no security advantages to VxRail. It's IPv6 ready, all kinds of stuff. I can take you through the key management systems and all that stuff. It also has remote secure access. So, like today on your SAN, you probably have a phone home feature so that if you have a disk fail, it gets notified and sent a disk. We got that stuff set up too. We can also look at your cluster remotely when you allow it and turn on ESRS to see what's going on. That's also secured in lockdown as well. We have secure boots, other things like that as well. Remember that I was telling you about that kind of build to buy continuum. This is kind of that from buy your own up to vCAN ready nodes. So just to briefly talk about vCAN ready nodes. Dell can quote you out at the same price as just buying our PowerEdge servers by themselves. We can quote you out what's called vCAN ready nodes, and they're basically bills of materials that have been pre-approved by Dell and VMware to say that in the version of VMware that we're on today, 6.7U1, this is certified for that 6.x version, right? So as long as that version remains, all of the components in here are certified. So that's one less thing you have to do. You don't have to go to the compatibility list, worry about all that stuff. You already know on the front end that it's supported in these configurations. We have a lot of options to choose from, whether it's our standard rack servers, or we have some modular servers as well. I'll get into those a little bit later. All kinds of different options to do vCAN ready nodes, right? Moving up the scale, hyperconverged, which is the VxRail I'm talking about. We have also the VMware validated design VxRail. That adds into it NSX, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, network security, and VM kind of network partitioning, things like that. And then it goes up from there. We try to keep this a small, medium-sized business, so VX rack and VBlock and all those things like that, that's kind of like next level stuff. After you get much larger clusters. Every one of these along the way have links that you can get to public cloud and move back and forth to. If you're here for last month, we talked about some of the new offerings that VMware has around connecting to public clouds and how you can, I'm not calling it storage vMotion, they have a different term. VMware, it's like Cloud Connect or something that allows you to Yeah, allows you to storage vMotion a VM up to the
Across vCenter?
Yeah, from like your private cloud up to AWS.
HDX goes.
Okay. I'm gonna keep calling it cloud storage vMotion. The people like get that, like, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. And so the vRealize suite combines a lot of this stuff too. It's going to be here, and that's that whole balance. So future improvements. A couple of new things. This product came out a few years ago, but we are heavily invested in the engineering. Dell EMC spends $6 billion annually on research and development. We like 3 times more than our engineers. We spend a ton of money on R&D, and a good chunk of that is going to the VxRail platform. Part of it is that we majority shareholder of VMware, and we own like 80% of it. So we're working together to continue to build this product out. And I tell this to a lot of people, like if VMware made hardware, VxRail, that would be their product, right? It's VMware. They designed the original config for all this stuff with Evo Rail and with BCE. So NVMe cache drives. So before it was write-intensive SSDs. Now we can do NVMe a lot faster. There's products out there. You can do GPUs now in some of the models, which is really cool. So these are great for VDI caseloads. Throw a couple things together, put some GPUs on it. Also 25 gig connectivity. Dell now has 25 gig switches, the same price as their 10 gig switch line. So 25 gigs is pretty easy to set up. And then we have the smaller 4112 switches specifically for top of rack. So a lot of changes happening. And then to add these things to the cluster, so like, okay, I buy 5 of these VxRail nodes, plug them all together, and that's great. I can add disks one by one. I like that too. But as revs change, as you march down time, what happens? It's just the same as storage and motioning and moving on, constant upgrade. So that's the big stuff here. VxRail Manager, how this all works. So why would I buy VxRail over a vSAN right now, right? And this is where VxRail Manager and all the goodness gets baked in, right? One of them is this is an appliance. So you don't want to think of it like a server build, you want to think of it more like a VCR or something like that, right? You're not going to configure or start change the hardware inside of this thing. You don't put new HBAs in. You go to CDW and start plugging things into it. You don't do that. This is a locked appliance, and it's managed by a separate management tool called VxRail Manager. Now, that will be changing in future versions, but for today, it's a VM that runs on the cluster that shows you the health of the VMware cluster. Now, you still have vCenter, so you're still managing everything through vCenter. This is the top-level stuff showing you the hardware and what's going on with the disk, things like that. It's also where you click on to talk with support and have any questions answered. But the big thing, the number one reason why VxRail is, why people buy VxRail, is for the upgradability of this thing, right? From here, you can upgrade the entire cluster. It's I think it's 2 buttons you click, right? Click 1 to download it, click 2 to fire it off. Now, still want to have an outage window and stuff, although the concept is pretty simple, right? You hit the button, first host evacuates, puts it into maintenance mode, upgrades, and then down it goes. Now, a couple things that this does for you, right? It's all pre-validated, because all of these pieces of hardware, remember, they're appliance, so there are limitations as to what you can put in them, although we have a lot of options. It's all been pre-tested inside of our facilities to make sure that the patches that we apply to them are going to work, and they're not going to purple screen you or lock you out, or hardware is not going to work. It's all been pre-validated. So when you press that button, whether it's a full vSphere update, like so vSphere is updating vCenter, ESX is going to a new rev, a big one like that, or it's just some zero-day security patches, regardless, you can be confident that these have been pre-tested and approved. Another thing, too, is from the time that VMware updates with vStandard or vSphere release to the time that VxRail comes up with that release, it was about a 6-month window, and we are really closing in on that. So now it's, it's moving. If you want to be more bleeding edge, we're getting closer to that. We'll never be lockstep, I don't think. I don't think we'll ever be right there, but we'll be pretty close behind it. So if you're jonesing for some of the new features like quick boot and things like that, you won't have to wait nearly as long to get this. I will tell you a little tip coming is this VxRail Manager that today is a separate VM is going to be baked into, it'll be an add-on directly inside of vCenter, so one less thing to have to manage. To prove that, here are some of the different things over the months that have been updated over time, whether it's maintenance releases or critical releases. So who has been on these every month? Who's updated every single one of these every month? Right. No one has. It's much work, right? That's one of the concepts of these appliances, right? Is that you can push the button, update change releases, so on and so forth. And you guys can do the math here on time savings, like how long it takes to babysit all these updates manually versus automatically. And then there's some things you can customize within VxRail. So listen here, VLAN IDs, creating a VMware folder, VM folders, stuff like that. There's some things that remote support can help you change. But just know too that this is a managed product, right? So if you really want to crank every knob and dial and really dig in deep, you might be better suited looking at vStandard units. It all has to. Remember, I was talking about this OpEx CapEx thing, right? It has a lot to do with how much time does your team have to spend on this stuff. Do you have dedicated vSphere resources? That's what they do all day. Then that equation changes for you. I know in Alaska, a lot of the customers I see are small, medium business customers who, we can shave off a couple hours a week for their teams that, be very helpful. Also, VxRail automates, it's actually like 250-some tasks now when you first set this thing up. So we plug it all in for you, get it all wired up, and then fire this thing up. We ask you a couple questions like, hey, we need some IP ranges, things like that. We need some root passwords you want to set up for this thing. And then it just goes to work. I was actually in the customer's office last week watching this happen. It takes a little while to run through everything, and it gives you a nice little graphic of what's going on. It's doing all these steps for you. So if you guys have ever added a SAN or configured LUNs and had to bring the LUNs into the storage manager, all that kind of stuff, all happens automatically on the back end. I'm sure you guys remember Nick bonding. That all happens automatically. So this saves a ton of time. vSphere licenses, you can bring your own vSphere licenses. It'll come with vSAN licenses already for you, so that's kind of nice. But you can do Enterprise Plus or Standard. It just tells you what you have to do manually. If you want Standard, here's the steps, the things that you'll have to do, versus Enterprise Plus, the stuff that would be automatically done for you. So just know there's still some trade-offs between going Standard and Enterprise Plus. So a big one is here, especially if you're planning on doing VDI workloads. And then that's where I'm going to stop, because we can go into details. I mean, trust me, the VCE team is at Dell, and they have more marketing materials on how to do it. I think we have questions about hyperconverged, how Dell handles VxRail, that platform. A couple of things I do want to show you. Dell doesn't just sell this product. Actually, let me just show you this real quick, because people do seem to like the hardware itself. Okay. So just real briefly, this is the hardware itself, right? So you have compute dense across, right? The compute dense, this is our newest one. This is the guy that has, it's broken into quarters, and there's 4 different compute nodes inside of it. It's like a blade system. And then they go across. All of these are based on our PowerEdge servers, right? So our 1U PowerEdge versus our 2U. And then the storage dense, which you can't see right here, it's our 740XD. So it's the one that has 24 disks going across the front of it. So a lot more capacity if you need. And you can just kind of see there what some of the different options are. You know, we break these out, call them like low profile. We actually used to call this like entry level or something like that. There's a different name than this today. And then performance optimized. Don't worry about that. If you're looking at this, we'll sit down with you and try to engineer the right solution. But don't get too hung up on calling them. They really don't. It really has more to do with how many disks do you need, how much capacity, that kind of stuff. And don't worry about the marketing. And then I'll just show you. So yeah, so you have a ton of different choices, whether it's drives, networking, GPUs, power slicing. There's a lot of options, right? Not as many as like standalone rack server, but you do get a lot. 4 nodes. This is that general purpose. In the front, it looks like regular disks, but in the back, it's got 4 different blades in it. Our 640 option, low profile, 740. And then there's the VDI 740. You have about 3 full-size GPUs in this box. It's pretty beefy. It takes a ton of power, but you can do it. You'll need C19 power cables for it. And then there's this is the capacity optimized. So it's designed to have the bigger disks. Okay, so I'll show you this. Okay. We also sell XD, which is our Nutanix product as well. For some of the folks, this is a VMUG meeting, so I'm going to take it a little lighter. For those of you who are on Microsoft Hyper-V or maybe KVM or a solution that's not VMware-centric, this might be another option to look at. Nutanix doesn't use vSAN. They have their own storage-defined or software-defined storage system. Dell does partner with them. We use our hardware and their software. And lately we have a new product called Core, which I kind of like a little better. And what Core does for you is you can buy the hardware from us, fully certified Nutanix hardware, put it into your environment, and then you buy the Nutanix software actually direct from Nutanix. One of the nice things about that is it reduces some finger pointing because our hardware is already certified, it's already good to go. You're going to get the support directly from Nutanix. It just makes for a little bit nicer of an engagement from a customer perspective. You can still buy it all from us, you can still do that, but that core option, it seems to be a lot nicer. And then here's just a couple of the different server options, a lot of different options on that as well. I don't want to get into it too much just because this is a VMUG, but I do want to let you know that there are other hyper-converged options out there. Dell isn't a one-trick pony in this, so we do have a lot of different options. So.
And if anybody does want to talk to Nutanix on VMware, I'll have that conversation with you guys offline. I'm a user of it, so. Yeah, okay, so that's what I've got on hyperconverged. Any other questions on that specifically? A couple things I do want to talk to you about, just to go on and on, I'm a salesperson, right? So, my plan was to briefly talk about our PowerEdge line. We have the 14th generation of our PowerEdge servers. Again, these are the world's best-selling servers. It's probably all used, right? Has everybody used Dell servers before? Yeah. We're a household name. So we'll talk a little bit about, here's the rest of the game plan for me. We'll talk a little bit about our servers. We have a new modular product out now called the MX. I've had a lot of questions around that and what's going on with our existing Blade chassis today. So I'll touch on that. And then I was going to show you, I have some demos from the Dell Demo Center on iDRAC and our new Open Managed Enterprise HTML5 one-to-many management system. I thought I'd show you guys those. So that was my game plan. If, we need to do the Looney Tunes hook, that's cool. Just let me know. No hard feelings on my front. So, that's that. Let me go back to this place. I can see all my notes. I get off on tangents. I have to write myself notes in the review. Eric, stop talking. Click the next slide. Here's my know Dell Technologies is the parent company. I work for Dell EMC. There are 7 companies that make up Dell. This is our client line. Why our laptops don't say Dell EMC on the back of them, they just say Dell. Pivotal, they do a lot of big data stuff. They can also help customers who are using those legacy applications like I was talking about before, for beer company, all that stuff, help them get to cloud native applications. They do that stuff. RSA, anyone deal with the CFOs that an RSA key on their keychain? Everybody gets what I'm talking about. They're a security company, two-factor authentication. They were like the OGs in that market, right? SecureWorks. These guys are awesome security risk assessment. They can also, if there is an incident, which we know they are even here in Alaska, they can airdrop incident responders down to help get things figured out. VirtuStream is our public cloud offering. It's bespoke, so we don't just give you VMs and say go to town. We work with you, figure exactly what you need. Really big about SAP and Oracle installs for people who are trying to get out from underneath managing Oracle internally. We have options for that. And then VMware. So that's us. We kind of have 3 pieces to our servers. End of the day, the boss would probably hate me saying this. Servers are a commodity business. All right, just put it out there. What do you buy when you buy a server? You're buying hard drives, you're buying chassis, power supplies. You're buying RAM, which Dell doesn't make. Right? You're buying a CPU, which Dell doesn't make. You're buying a network card, Dell doesn't make. So what's the value add? What these slides are trying to show is, first of all, what the new stuff is, because that's important. And then 2, what differentiates us? Why would you buy a Dell server over another brand? So how do we scale? How do we automate? And how do we protect? Those are the big things. So scalable. We have software-defined offerings. I just talked to you a lot about vSAN. We work very closely with our vSAN Ready nodes. We can do a ton more VDI now because of all the different GPUs we can add to our systems. A lot of different scalable options. We sell a ton of different servers.
The nice thing about all of our servers from a scalable perspective is they all can be managed from either the same utility across the different ones if you need to use them individually, or they can be managed from a one-to-many single business management system. Other companies have a lot of different other one-to-manys depending on what line you're buying. We don't do it that way. We just have one way to manage our servers. Automation, we have a lot of new APIs, especially through our iDRAC. If you guys are familiar with Redfish, we work with that. Obviously, we have all of the IPMI, all those other APIs out there. Pro Support Plus and Support Assist are award-winning support management system. With Pro Support Plus, we can actually send you hardware like this thing with a SAN, get a hard drive, PSUs, things like that out to you very quickly, automatically. And we can do some things within our open managed products where we can automatically deploy things like operating systems, firmware updates, things like that, just with you plugging it in and plugging it into the iDRAC cable. So, talk a little bit more. And security, we call it site resist architecture. We have a couple different things now. For one thing, whose password is still Calvin on our iDRACs? Don't even know. But for years, our iDRAC passwords were the same for every user. That's changed now. So when you buy a server from us, you have to pull up another luggage tag and the unique passwords on that. And then the trick is we ask you to change that password right away. But if you ever need to factory reset it, it goes back to that luggage tag. So it used to be very helpful for me when customers would call with problems. I could always tell them type in Calvin and work. But those days are numbered. So we also do a couple of things. We have Silicon Root and Trust, which we can talk more about. All of our drivers on our website are digitally signed. Not every company's are. So that's important too. They're MD5 hashed, so you can verify the authenticity of all of the drivers we release. We also have a thing called System Lockdown Mode, which you can set all of the BIOS and firmware settings, lock it down, so it can't be changed again until you put in the iDRAC password. That's really great for automated systems that might try to do some sort of command control and make a change out of band to your system. It's nice that iDRAC is out of band, right? It's out of band management. It doesn't talk to it's not on the motherboard, so it's powered, it has its own system if your computer purple screens or whatever. But that's also a separate system as well. So we understand that. Came up with lockdown mode to fix that. So we have a bunch of different stuff. We have towers, we have racks, we got modular. That's what I'm going to spend kind of the majority of the time today is on the modular. And then extreme scale, that's called our C-series or cloud series architecture. And that VMware I was telling you about with the 4 nodes in the back of it, that came from our cloud team. They kind of rebranded it and turned it into a node. And so this is our intelligent automation. So this is what I'm talking about iDRAC. iDRAC stands for the Integrated Dell Remote Access Controller. That didn't sound as sexy, so we just called it iDRAC, and it's kind of stuck ever since. iDRAC is now HTML5. It's very snappy, no Java. People like that, yes. And for those of you who are on 13 Gen and lower versions who want some of that HTML5 goodness, have good news and have bad news. Bad news is on a one-by-one basis, I can help you. The new iDRACs are multi-core proc, and they're designed to be able to run the higher workload requirements to get HDMI screens. However, if you use Open Managed Enterprise, and I'll show you a demo of that here in a minute, you can add those older nodes into Open Managed Enterprise and manage them through that system with that nice HTML5 interface. When you start buying Dell products, you'll start seeing kind of this blue band, white screen kind of thing back here. Kind of like this. This is called our new Clarity UI, and you're seeing it across the board. Our data domain folks are using it. Our storage folks, we're using it. Open Managed Enterprise. It's being used across the board, right? It's really clean, crisp, fast. I will say as a Dell customer for about 15 years, we kind of had this ebb and flow of UIs that looked good and didn't look good, or fast or slow, and they buy Equal Logic and then just bring in that UI, and never really change it. They really are making a concerted effort to try to get a nice, clean look and feel. We'll talk about iDRAC. I don't want to get into it. You can deploy, update, monitor, and maintain everything, all of your server needs from the iDRAC or larger scale from Open Managed Enterprise. So that's the big value add, in my opinion, is iDRAC Open Managed. and I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to skip all these things, so we'll get into it. Yeah, so here you go. This is what it looks like, but I'll show you a live version, which is better. There's also Open Managed Mobile. It's actually pretty cool. You can get, if you're in the data center or something, and you need to really quickly look and see what's going on. I don't know really I found out the USB doesn't support data. It's just some power and audio. So. But you can see all your servers just like you would in an open managed environment. You can click on any one of the servers and it takes you in. It'll show you a nice picture of the server as well as anything else going on with it. So this is just kind of like dummy data. That allows you to see some basic information. You can even like tell it to flash the little tool light. It's like you're in a rack and you don't have a computer with you. You can really quickly flash and see which computer you're talking about. Just kind of handy. I mean, they're small things, but they can be pretty helpful. And then I'll talk a little bit about modular edition. So let's talk a little about the devices themselves. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so let's start here. This is our brand new chassis. My coworker calls it the Big Sexy. Sure, okay, I'll call it that. The MX device has come out of some requests around our M1000E chassis, which is a 16-node blade chassis, right? We've had it for years and years and years. The M1000E chassis does have an end of sale date attached to it now. So right now it's scheduled for mid to late next year. Now that means we'll still support it for 7 years after that, but just so you know, we are planning on eventually getting rid of it. So what this is, I've been told I'm not allowed to call this a blade chassis. I'm not allowed to call it. It's a modular system that has compute, storage nodes in the front with networking options in the back. So that sure sounds a lot like a blade chassis to me. The difference is there's no backplane in this. So with every other blade chassis out there, there's some sort of backplane that you have to update, including Dell's, right? Firmware update or something like that. And that always could be a point of contention if you had to update that when all of your workloads are running on one of these 16 servers, right? The only thing that connects to these modules when you slide them in is power and a network connection. That's it. Everything else is modular. Now the reason for that is, has anyone heard of Gen Z? Okay, so Gen Z is actually a consortium. Dell, HP, Google, there's like 30 or 40 different large companies that are working on this. They're creating a standard. The idea is they want to be able to split out the different components of a server to be able to distribute those as needed, right? One of the problems is you have to have like sub 400 nanosecond speed in order to do that, right? Well, the switches, we do have switches now that'll do that. So what we're doing is we're trying to create a standard where instead of having, server 1, server 2, server 3, you have maybe a module full of Intel cards, or maybe a module full of RAM, or GPUs, etc., right? And then on the fly, you can compose different servers from those pools of resources, right? You're abstracting the hardware even further than VMware has done, right? That's this concept that's composable. This device will be Gen Z compatible. So you will be able to throw Gen Z switches in the back of this thing, and we'll be able to provide that because we're not putting a backplane. We're trying to look at the future. This is all very future looking. The plan is to have Gen Z switches out by the end of next year or early 2020. So it is something that's coming down the pipe. We're trying to be ahead of it. But for today, this will be the kind of replacement for the M1000 going forward. It holds up to 9 blades or modules in, or 8 modules in it along the front here, and I have some other photos to show you about it. Yeah. So it uses Open Managed Enterprise Modular Edition, right? So it's that same program I was talking to you earlier about. Except in this case, in the back of the chassis, there's two separate, very small computers. Think of them as like beefy Raspberry Pis or something. That all they do is run Open Managed Enterprise. There's two of them for redundancy. They both have a network card on them, so they can be daisy-chained across. You can manage up to 10 chassis with a single main chassis, right? Everything is done through Open Managed Enterprise on this. So you set up the switching, you set up how the storage works, and obviously how you do your updates to the hosts themselves. They're all done from that interface. So yeah, up to 80 servers on 10 chassis. This thing is vSAN compatible, or it's vSAN certified. So we'll talk a little about the chassis here, but more importantly, I want to talk to you about some of the different ways you can connect this thing together, because it's pretty cool. So compute nodes, these are the the dual proc compute nodes. You'll notice they have 6 disks on the front of them. I believe the M1000E, did we have an M1000E chassis today? I think they only have 2 disks on the front of their blades. So 6 disks on this, which in and of itself, if you wanted to do kind of a scaled back vSAN node, you could do that with 6 disks. You'd be a little constrained, but you could do it depending on the need. And these would be just the same as any of our R-series R640 server, R740. We also have a 4-proc server for some of those larger workload needs, because you can install Windows directly on this. You don't have to make this a VMware thing, right? So like Oracle, those kinds of things that need to have your load, you can run this on as well. Up to 48 DIMM slots too, so you can really boost it. All of our servers also come with M.2 options. So if you want to run your OS on the motherboard, we throw 2 M.2 cards on there for you, the boss cards. It's RAID 1 automatically, and it saves all the disks for use for storage. And they're fast. So this is the cool thing. This is the storage sled. It holds 16 SAS disks inside it. It's kind of cool. When you slide the thing out, the whole blade doesn't come with it. The blade stays behind, and just like the disk holder comes out. And you can, on the fly, while it's still on, move disks around. So it holds 16 disks. Every disk on this thing is individually assignable to any one of the nodes. So when we're talking about vSAN, if you want to add more disk to the whole chassis, you can do that using this mechanism right here. And it's direct attached SAS. So that's how it's presenting it, right? Again, no backplane, no storage, it's just SAS. There's a SAS switch in the back of this unit. We're going to have the same switching mechanism, so no backplane.
I haven't kept up on it very well, but a couple of years ago, Dell was pushing the 1.8-inch SSDs. Do they still sell those?
No, those are gone. Yeah, those are a cool concept. I remember when they came out with 13 gen, but yeah, they never went anywhere. So I think they were only SATA, and we're kind of finding that SAS is kind of like the new enterprise standard. So the big conversation is around the networking on this thing too, and there's all kinds of options. We have like a full 100 gig switching engine built into this thing. And the switching, just like in the front, the switches are modular. You can choose different switching options, right? You can do fiber channel. You can do 100 gig. You can do up to the minimum that these things in the back end communicate is 2 by 25. So each node in the front will have 50 gigs of connectivity. You can add more, depending on the switching you're putting on it. But just so you know, you're going to get 50 gigs per node.
Does it have, say, Cumulus support? Is it an actual white box switch, or is it just?
Yes. So good question. Yes. So these are open managed switches. So you'll be able to add Cumulus, Big Switch, Pluribus, all those open managed brands, or open networking brands that we carry for OSs. We're seeing a lot of questions being asked around Big Switch, how that's all going to play into this stuff, but from a management scale, like if you're playing these in different locations geographically, yeah, you can still manage with Big Switch from a GUI perspective. That's what we want to do. We also have this fabric expander module. We call it FEM. Does that sound familiar? Close to familiar, maybe another brand out there. I don't know why we couldn't come up with a name
that wasn't like so close to specs, but there we are. It's a 16 by 25 server facing, and then there's 2 expansion ports at the end. It looks like this one right there. It's designed solely to connect to other chassis. That's your chassis connection. Also, fiber switch option as well. And then if none of that works for you, and you're just going to be a total stick in the mud, that's cool. We can always do pass-through as well. So that's always an option as well. So lots of operating system options. And yeah, so future ready with other OSs. So. And if you guys, I'm not gonna hop out of this talk, but if you are curious about Dell's open networking story, please let us know. We're making a lot of headway in that over the last 3 years. We've kind of gone like through the visionary quadrant, like whoosh, up into the magic quadrant. So it's from a data center switching perspective, we have a pretty cool story to tell. We're nicely priced, and we can support up to 8 different operating systems in our switches. So you don't have to use the Dell OS if you don't want to. The Dell OS comes with a switch. If you guys know Cisco CLI, then you know it's based on the same Stanford code. So, but there's a lot of other options depending on how you want to scale it. So. And if you use Cumulus, so you get a lot of Linux coders in the network doing DevOps, that might be a good option for you too. It's good to have a conversation to determine what OS is the right one for your needs. So FX series, FX has been around a little while, but I'll just briefly touch on FX. FX is our 2U modular system. It does have a backplane, it's a 10 gig backplane, so no, that is a limitation. It's high network transfer is really important for you. You want to look at the MX or standalone servers with maybe 25 gig switches on top. But the way these things work, these are great for kind of robo offices, things like that still have a decent compute footprint that's needed. This one's kind of going away, so I would maybe look at this one a little less. Right here, this one is showing 2 separate servers. These are 4 proc servers, one up there and then one down here. And then there's also a half width, half height, which gives you 4 servers in it. And that's by far the most common. We also carry SAS 16 drive storage slides on the bottom. This configuration right here is a vSAN bundle, and you can buy 2 of these and then put the 2 node in here, and that's also a vSAN bundle as well. So 2 options there if you want to do maybe a smaller vSAN. We've got some customers that do exactly this right here. They just put all flash in. So that's the chassis itself. The different nodes. I'm trying to give you guys all the pictures of these. I figured this is the right group for that stuff. R series, just really quick. R series, this is our most popular server, our 740. It's 2U servers, have a million different options. We now can, on the network router card, can do 25 gig ports. Like I said, the pricing has come way down on that. So 25 gig and 10 gig are pretty much parity pricing wise. Tons of different disk options, RAID configurations, and go on and on. But not going to. Does anybody have any questions specific about our R-Series power associated servers before I get into the demo on our systems? Just want to make sure. Okay. Okay, so let's do the iDRAC first. Dell Demo Center uses VMware's learning. You guys have ever taken any of the VMware hands-on labs before? Who here has used iDRAC before? Oh, okay, good. So you see right away it already looks a little bit. And it's pretty snappy. This is me remoting into a lab, and it's already. So some of the features that we all know and love about iDRAC, right here, virtual console. If you're standardized on Dell servers, throw away that KVM. You don't need it. You can remote console in from anywhere you have VPN access and see what's actually going on in your server.
Remember, iDRAC is a lights out system, so even if the hardware itself is completely done, as long as the iDRAC has power, you're going to get to all these resources. You'll see the purple screen on here. That's the only thing you don't ever want to see when you open up iDRAC, but you will see it, right? iDRAC also has some cool things that if there is like a shutdown or a freeze up, it'll record the last 10 seconds. So if there was some sort of quick memory dump or something, you could look at the DVR and see if there was some sort of kernel panic or fault or something. You might get some data to at least help you figure out maybe it was a thermal thing or whatever it is. Really quick header display going on here. Quick service tag information, that's always handy when you're calling support. This tells you system health, what's going on. There's logs like the chassis was open, things like that. You can also bounce the system right from here. There's a couple other actions. So let's just look at the system itself. You'll see a couple cool things about this is it gives you power information right away. So like if you're spec'ing at a new UPS, that's always handy to know. You know, like I know I got a pair of 2000 volt processor of power supplies, but what is it really doing? You know, like even at peak, what's it doing at peak? You can see here like max peak was 490 watts. And that's historical trend, so you can pretty safely say that's going to be your high water mark. We had another 15% or something just for protection. See what your power capacity is, things like that. You can go through here, same deal, like CMOS battery, PERC batteries, cooling, how the fan's doing. All this information is right up here. Network devices, I'll show you this too. We have the switch connection ID, which is new in 14th gen, and this is a lab, so it's not like a real server. If this was plugged up into a real switch, you'd actually see switch ports on here. And it's not just Dell, it's other vendors that show here too. This is super handy. If you're trying to figure out what server's plugged into what switch. Just makes life a lot easier, especially if you're running.
Is it pulled from both CDP and LDP, or?
I don't know. I don't know where it's pulling from.
Does both.
Does it?
Yeah, we were testing it yesterday. Unfortunately, it's receive only, so it doesn't do the network engineers any good. But it is very helpful for server admins.
All right, so a couple of things you can look at here. There's all kinds of different ways to get to all the different data on this thing. Details about the system itself, you can see inventory. Again, this is a lab environment, but you can see all different firmware inventory showing right here, what firmware levels, everything is at. Performance, again, the same deal, you got to get from CPU and memory, all the good stuff. A lot of data you can see about a million different ways depending on what you're using, VMware, whatever, but this is a little more specified on this data. Then host OS, I would show you that assessment. A couple things on storage here. You'll notice this storage looks a little crazy. And what's going on here is it's trying to show you if I had a DAS connected MD array connected to this thing, you can manage it all straight from here, right? So plug in your SAS controlled storage and manage all your virtual disk groups, RAID arrays, everything from this window right here. And then it would show you the controllers, physical disks, Unity enclosures. Like I said, this is showing like multiple MD arrays, just as an example. I'm going to do maintenance on this thing too, system updates, things like that. Now, right now, the way it works is you use our Dell repository manager, choose which devices you have, what versions of firmware you want, it will create a package for you, and then you just point this thing to it, and it will update everything. That's a really high-level view of iDRAC. So that's great for like just standalone one-off servers. Maybe they can't connect out to the larger network for some reason or another. Maybe this is your very first Dell server. This is a great tool to use, day-to-day management. There's a better way though. and that's using OpenManage Enterprise.
Now, there's a free version of this too called OpenManage Essentials.
So, yes, thank you. I'll tell you the difference too, because there is. Takes a second to load. Someone needs to get a cert.
Now, is this demo location, is that something that,
I think it's even Austin.
is it internal though to Dell? Or
Yes, this is, unfortunately, this is,
Okay.
yeah, I had a VPN into the network to get this bad boy to come up. Okay, so before I go into what we're looking at here, let me talk a little about OpenManage. OpenManage is our systems management, one-to-many management system, okay? It does alerting, it does reporting, it does monitoring, and it does management. It does all those things for any of your Dell servers, as well as you can pull data for Dell storage, as well as Dell networking. You can do all that, right? OpenManage Essentials was our version previous to this. It's in the middle of being sunset. It exists today. Both Enterprise and Essentials are free $99. There's no cost to either one. Enterprise is it's virtualized ready, so it does KVM, it does Hyper-V, and it does VMware. It's an OVF template, fire it off, and it runs as an appliance. Very low power, it doesn't take a lot of resources. There is some cost associated with whether it was the older version Essentials or Enterprise, and the only cost is if you want to do things to the server. So if you want to install firmware, if you want to, anything other than like rebooting the server, that think change management actions, that requires a $100 license. There's no discount for it, it's just always $100. It's for every host you want to connect up to. So any power server you want to connect up, it's a one-time $100 charge. You don't pay for it again. What I normally do when I'm specking out servers for customers, when we add that, we need to take it off, we always talk about it, but it's so much easier to pay the $100 and have it there, even if you're not using OME today, than to, like, I'm going to add 20 servers in now and I have a $2,000 bill. It's, it's going to pain in the butt to have to go justify it later on. So it's tied to the iDirect license. So if you're on Premier or you're on Dell.com and you're specking out a server, when you see OpenManage, you'll see iDirect Enterprise, and then right below you'll see iDirect Enterprise with OpenManage. You'll see it's an extra $100 more. That's what you're getting. That's the charge. But that's been that way for quite a while. It's not new for Enterprise. It's been around for a long time. Enterprise is always HTML5. You'll notice that it has a kind of similar look and feel to the iDirect we were just on, right? That's what I was talking about that Clarity UI. We're trying to keep things looking similar, right? So hardware health here, you'll notice this is showing all devices. You'll see that we have 36 different things connected to it. You'll see the different alerts over here. There's baselines of configuration, warranties even. So like me being an admin, first thing I want to know is what the heck is critical in the environment right now. And it pulls up right away. It tells you what it is, what the situation, what's going on. Allows you to plug into any one of these. So that this is the lab R640, and it says there's a critical health alarm on it. And you'll notice, as of right now, it just has a kind of a dummy screen. But when you install this in your environment, it'll pull down the actual image of what an R740 would look like. Connection to the device was successful. There's some sort of connection error, which may not be. But you'll notice too, this is the actual host screen, right? So I personally like this screen better than even the iDirect one. I think it gives me more, and I it's laid out better, right? You can launch iDirect right from here. You can also launch the virtual console right from here. So you don't have to first go into the iDirect to pull up the console. You're going to see the IP address of the management system, again, service tag, all that kind of stuff, how much RAM, there's OS, all that information on it. You can still bounce this thing right from here, refresh, you can blink the LED if you need to. All the same kind of stuff you can do on the iDRAC. Again, you get all this information right here. Here's the card information, NICs and rate and all that stuff. See if this actually shows. Still doesn't show.
So I'll kind of interrupt.
Yeah, please do. So for like small medium business, even larger businesses, if you're not using like VRAPs and you're not, you're looking for some way to monitor your environment, you're looking for ways of doing firmware management, everything. This is a very cost-effective way of doing that in your environment if you're on Dell hardware. So you can connect your chassis up to it, you can connect anything that has a DRAC on it, you can do your monitoring, you can do all your maintenance and management and everything, and this will help you take care of that and manage the environment for you. And if your job has another tool that they want to use for the monitoring, you can kind of use this as your back office tool to kind of monitor and monitor everything. Like I said, if you're not you do get into the overlap if you're a VROPS customer or if you're using something like SolarWinds and whatnot. You might find some overlap there, but this is a really good tool otherwise. And then in the environment that I came from at CME, we use this to kind of revalidate our firmware baselines. So even though we were not using it for any kind of monitoring capacity, we did want to know, okay, what kind of firmware versions are out there? What's actually being fixed so that we weren't just relying on the package that was coming from Dell. We could actually, it allowed you to pull the information and pull reports to know, oh, this is fixing this issue, or this is fixing this particular bug in the CPU, etc. It's a good way to do that.
Yes, and so to the firmware piece too, one thing we do here is we have these, so it's firmware deploy compliance. You can create baselines right here, right? And that baseline might be, specific driver sets. It might be based on groupings. You can group computer or servers together in this tool, either just standard, like I want this server in, I want that server in, or dynamically, like I want all vSphere servers in, or by whatever dynamic rule you want to associate with it. And then you can create these baselines for I want the firmware to be at this version, etc. You can create alerts. So if any of the servers deviate from that baseline, you can get an email. So some rogue admin went in there and put some sort of unsigned firmware in or something. You can get a notification to that point. And you'll also get updates about like where we at on compliance of our baselines, right? Deploying just pushes out those firmware baselines. They can get pulled directly from ftp.dell.com inside the system, which will hold the file itself, or you can continue to use Dell Repository Manager. Repository Manager gets used a lot more in government agencies, places where you can't just go out and download files and bring them back in again. You can use Repository Manager, get the signed driver files that you need, make sure they're legitimate, create the package, and then present them out to the baseline. So there's different ways. There's different ways to do it depending on your, what you need to do. On compliance is exactly what I was talking about there. There's two other things just to touch on. One is alerting. This is a great alerting tool. It alerts on hundreds of different metrics. RPM speed, temperature, hardware failures, all that kind of stuff can be alerted. Some of these are just audits or device compliance. Maybe these are baseline compliance audits, but it doesn't just have to be for baselining. It could be for any piece of hardware in the system. You can go in there and set policies and definitions, so you can put in your email SMP system and have email you. You can have it send those traps to another alerting system. You can pipe the log back to something else as well. So lots of different options when it comes to alerting. I don't recommend pointing it to your IT group email system and turning it all on. It is pretty chatty. So definitely pick the things that you care about. And then monitoring. You can get all kinds of cool reports. And instead of showing a report, I'll show you the warranty thing. I always show this. So lots kinds of customers, and we'll fire this thing up. You can point it either an IP address or a range or DNS queries, and just bring in all of your redirects, just all in one big fell swoop. It's usually pretty quick to do. And I usually pull this thing up right away, like, oh, hey, you have some servers that are already out of warranty. You have some that are like 2 months away from being out of warranty. Just a heads up, this is a nice tool to use. And you can actually set alerts on this too, to email you when you're 90 days away or 180 days away from warranty being expired. And then you can send out reports, which are great to give up the chain if you need to. And it comes with a bunch of canned reports too. If you want a weekly report and alerts, email you can do that. How the BIOS is configured, all kinds of cool alerts or a monitor reports. And you can also make your own report generator tool in it as well. So that's the really high level of Open-Managed Enterprise. This has a very robust community inside of Dell. You can go to delltechcenter.com/openmanage. A lot of great tools there. If you just go to YouTube and type Open-Managed Enterprise, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of videos on how to do all kinds of stuff in here. The last thing I'll leave you with, and I don't have, I apologize, the marketing materials just aren't there yet for this product. It's the, what are we calling it? Open-Managed, make sure I get the term right. Open-Managed integration with vSphere, something like that.
What am I?
Yeah, it's VMUG, right? So it's showing you this whole video. I'm just going to show you the screens. So I'm just going to use this video. That's the best I can do when it comes to this So you'll see here, OMIVV is a paid-for tool. It's not very expensive, and you buy it per host. It's an add-on inside of vCenter. It does support 6.7 Update 1, so it is up to date with the newest HTML5 interface. It brings all of that data, so I was just showing you as a separate tool, into vCenter directly, so you can do things like baseline and firmware updates, alerting, all of that stuff directly through the VMware system as well. We also have management packs that can go into vRealize operations, so you can do a lot of that, look a lot of that management to what's going on straight through vRealize operations. None of the tools I've showed you are replacements for vRealize operations. That is a totally separate tool that's designed to give you all kinds of insights about what's going on inside your vCenter environment. This will not do. This is managing hardware. So just so you know, the different tools, you can embed them together to try to make life a little bit easier for you. But depending on your role in your company, that may or may not be necessary. So, yeah. So those are the top level things I want to talk about. I was going to talk a little bit about our data protection system. I'm not the front person for that. We actually have a whole separate group. But Dell has released, it's called the IDPA, or the Integrated Data Protection Appliance. The new 4400 model recently released. It's a 2U box. It can scale up to 96 terabytes of backup, and that's just the raw backup. We still get like 30 or 40 to 1 dedupe ratio. So you can cram a ton of backup in a 2U appliance. It comes with all the software, HTML5 interface, everything you need. You just plug the sucker into your cabinet, point it to your VMware environment, and you're backing stuff up. So we're calling it a hyper-converged backup. I kind of roll my eyes at that term, but if you're familiar with more legacy backup systems, you have to provide storage, you have to provide CPU to dedupe the data, and you have to provide software. You have to have all these different pieces. This is just one appliance you shove in, has everything you need to back up. So it also has replication engines built into it, the data domain. Connects to all different other kinds of things too. So I'd love to get the data domain or the DPS team back up here maybe in a couple months or something to kind of talk about how Dell is backing up VMware. It's a nice talk, and my engineer's really good at it. So with that, if there's any questions for me, Dell specific. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
We'll take about a 10-minute break here, and then we'll move on to the next topics. Any of you guys on the phone have any questions?
Okay, so guys, we just touched the networking pieces and a lot of pieces. From the VMware perspective, the main issues today is basically NSX, networking, and vSAN. We will touch some parts of automation, orchestration, a lot of things that we had discussions about it, so we will try to touch it and cover all of it. So we touched networking for a second, and what's happening on the networking side. And I just found a few slides, and I edited to what basically happens on the SDN, right? SDN, software-defined network. What it means, how from the VMware perspective, what it means from VMware perspective, how we see it from vendor-based switching, operating systems, and things like that. And so let's see. Cool. Traditional network, we all experience it, right? There's a lot of networking guys in the room, so we know that we need to configure our switches, we need to configure everything, a lot of manual operations, and basically it's a good thing, right? Network should be the most stable thing that we have. So we can't allow changes every 5 minutes. We can't allow policies and firewall changes on the fly. It's something that's impossible. So basically, it's a good thing that the network, or I will touch underlay network, the switching, the actual forwarding, should be as stable as possible. It's not because we're bad guys. We just want it as stable as possible. But the demand around it is definitely changing, right? Everything is changing. Everybody wants using mobile phones. The way we connect to the network totally changed. From the mobile phones, from all our devices, in most of the cases, we will use our network from different locations. So everything has changed. And we need to adapt to this change. And there's a lot of things that happens. And to the networking guys, it's basically not a good thing. Agility is not a simple thing, or configuring network on the fly is definitely not a simple thing. So all these pieces are demands from the field that we need to respond and enable in our data centers, and it's not that easy. And this is why SDN jump into the picture. SDN basically means software-defined network. That means that something can use policies and enable all those things. For the dev operations teams, this is a great thing. Now they can create things on demand. So VMware played a huge role in this, right? I don't think that anyone can imagine waiting months or so for a server, or basically for a web server, right? Is anyone here on the phone still waiting months to get a VM or operating system? No, right? So this is what happened to the network. It was untouched for a long period of time. But now this is all changes happens to the network. So stage number one is exactly what happens on compute virtualization. It's decoupling the services, hardware from software. And we just touched on this piece, right? Open network, what it means. So we will cover it a little bit. So we need to decouple these things. Few things, operating system and hardware. The next thing is definitely the management plane. Who can control, who can manage all those services? From the physical side, from the software side, how we can manage it. So all those services are decoupled. And definitely, we can hear a lot about open network. Open network stands for that there is a lot of service providers, and I will show the map of what we have today on this like overview of software-defined network, what we have. We can see a lot of operating system, new operating system, CLI, have been replaced on the switch side. Management tools, analytic services, tons of things that are enabled with this open network concept. And this is something that's very tough if I will go back to the traditional networking that most of us even using today, right? Let's say, if it's not enabled or if it's not open for dynamic changes, this is something that definitely will stop you at some point. Cloud speech, right? Is anybody from the cloud operators, even small cloud operators, using traditional network stack? None. It's impossible. They have SLAs. In the SLA, they need to provide not a VM, they need to provide active web server in a matter of minutes. It's impossible. And it should be secure, should be running on the network, so it's impossible to do with traditional tools. So we will see a lot of changes. The role of the operating system in these cases is huge. One of them is definitely Dell did a great thing. They saw it a few years ago, they saw it that they need to change and open the switches. So basically they created a switch with BIOS that you can load any operating system on top of it. Simple as that. And this is the Dell vision of open network. And now there is tons of players with operating systems. One of the slides will show it. Tons of free stuff. And like always, somebody's taking it, creating support, wrapping up with management, and from that point it becomes enterprise solutions and things like that. But the goal here that everybody can play with that, and it's pretty easy. And definitely from overlay and underlay perspective, and this is the differentiation between NSX and switch operating system, for example, that there is a software side that we will call from that point overlay, and there is a physical gear that manages all the networking side, that it's basically underlay. So that's two things that I want to set at this stage. Control plane. Now I have the switches. Something should be happening. I cannot configure them all the time, manually changing things. So something should be happening. So I have some kind of controllers. Once again, there is open sources and enterprise solutions that I can use to enable changes on the switches. So I can create something and it will run the orchestration flow. So this is the control plane and it's fully decoupled from the data plane. If something will happen on the control plane, I don't care. All the settings in the switches, and switches definitely will have kind of redundancy to support it. Decision making, how and what to implement, it's not very easy, but definitely everybody are moving, and we will show where we stand today and the forecast, what will happen on the network side. And it touches the new concept, right? SDN, software-defined network, basically created software-defined WAN. How we connect between the sites, how we connect users, how all this happens. Everything is moved to the cloud. So if I'm in the office, even in the office, I will use tons of different services from different locations. I can use Dropbox, I can use Office 365. So even my work environment changed. I need all these lines. I need to support all these throughputs to all these locations. And this is why software-defined WAN came into the picture, because everything is changing. And it's changing pretty quick. And I will touch VMware side for software-defined WAN a little bit more details. But this is the dramatic change. Now it's not only users connected to me or between the sites, it's everything interconnected between all the sites. How many of you using voice over IP that is not hosted on site? Office 365. Yes. Your environment changed. if you wanted, the connection to the environment is changing. So we will touch what software-defined 1 is doing on this side. But it's definitely changed. And if it's changed, maybe we can improve it somehow. So we know our lines, we know what we can afford and what we can get, MPLS, traditional cables, and things like that. But what if I can combine these lines? I can optimize what I will use for each traffic. I need something that can figure this out. I need something that can create analytics behind it. I need something that will make decisions. Back to the software-defined, I want to create a policy that my users, let's say the voice for the call center is the critical thing. I don't care if anything else will fail, but the phone lines must operate all the time. Right? So this is kind of policies that I can create, apply to my infrastructure, and it will support these policies, even if it's hosted outside of the. So I can create more advanced things. And if I will go, on the screen it's terrible green.
It's better on the WebEx.
Okay, cool. So, what is the landscape? What's going on? There's tons of names, tons of settings. You can see that in data center networking, VMware NSX, and we will dive to VMware NSX a little bit more. There's different solutions that play in, let's say, in the overlay aspect. There is tons of services from the physical switching perspective, from the operating system, how it operates on the campus side, on the enterprise interconnect side. From the SD1, you can see an explosion of different services, maybe something that you didn't see or I'm not following. So maybe there is 10 new guys that showed up in the last month. But there is explosion of the services. Even if you don't know and you connect it to different vendors, they will use those services. So basically you don't know what's going on, but they will use VeloCloud. They don't really use anybody else. Okay, in the background. But this is what happens. And definitely much more from control plane and operating systems. And this is how it looks like, what will happen to the networking services, what's already happening and what will continue to happen. And we can see definitely growth of software-defined network and software-defined one. And it's pretty clear why. The environment is changing, so the networking is changing as well with the environment. We can talk about numbers and where, from the VMware perspective at least, how we see VMware owns VeloCloud. This is one of the providers, the SD1 solutions. So we can share some information, how they grow, what exactly they do in your area. Definitely NSX as a networking cost. But the growth is huge. Quick dive to overview NSX. I know that we already did it, but I don't know if the same people on WebEx and in the room. So we will run a quick brief of what's going on and what is NSX basically. So if I will dive to how we operating data centers, there is definitely some layers, some management layers from the IT perspective, and some infrastructure layers. The management layers are pretty clear. Once again, going back to the cloud operational model, and everything moves to the cloud operational model, even in internal IT, doesn't matter the size. But there is a mandatory things, mandatory standards today, what cloud means, what cloud operation model means. There must be self-service protocol, operations management, including showback or chargeback solutions. Showback basically just provides you the information, how much you spend. Chargeback will go and charge for the services. Definitely automation piece. Automation piece, I mean everything that is possible to create out of the box. So it should be simple. There's a lot of things that we do out of the box. I will cover some of them. And orchestration piece, if we need to extend or create something else, right? Something that is not available, I need to create it. It's something unique for me, so I need to play with the orchestration. And definitely the layers of software-defined compute, software-defined storage, and software-defined networking. Otherwise, if I'm missing any piece here, I cannot create cloud operational. Simple as that. I don't care which products we will use, but if I don't have it, I can't operate on this level. Planning and executing, pretty simple. How we should run the implementation of those services. So if I will dive to the typical data center, we will see exactly the same things: compute, storage, network, application, and the management pieces. And from the management side, let's cover the automation piece right away. So I said there is a lot of out-of-the-box services. From the VMware side, we have serialized automation solution. Serialized automation will cover many out-of-the-box services. Once you deploy the solution, now you can create a self-service portal that users can log in, connected to Active Directory, different things, definitely approval chain. You need to configure who's the manager. It can map to Active Directory to bring this logic inside the automation center. But once it's created, now you can publish the services. And it's pretty easy. You can publish any service, create VM or onboarding new employee, whatever you want, right? There is no limit. And when I'm saying there is no limit, this is exactly when we will dive to the orchestration piece. Out of the box, we can create some things. So there is a secret tool. How many of you know about serialized orchestrator or vCenter orchestrator? 1, 2, 3. You asked for this session, so that counts. 2. Okay, great. So this is a liver cell of VMware. Every one of you that have vCenter standard basically owns vCenter orchestrator. You can log in to My Downloads, VMware My Download, download the appliance, OVA, deploy it, connect to the vCenter, and now you have the orchestrator. Orchestrator will bring tons of services. Orchestrator already includes, I don't remember the actual number, but I think something like 500 actions that you can create and manage. Anything that you want. Turn on VM, shut down, snapshot, schedule, run it, whatever. Great thing that you can open it not only to the IT team. If you have different people that you want to enable some services, but you don't want them to log into the vCenter, this is something that you can do, right? They can access only the orchestrator piece, different UI, and run the workflow that they need. Run backup, something like that. Run backup on this VM, and it will do it. So there is a lot of things that's possible to create. And orchestrator is extendable. So there is an SDK that everybody can write plugins to any solution. I can log in later and show you what's available, but I think there is something like 50 or 60 already available solutions. So if you're thinking about creating load balancing on the event, F5 already have orchestrator plugins. So basically you can create everything that is based on F5. Checkpoints, Active Directory, backup solutions, and so on. Is already created for you. It means that someone already created actions. You don't need to write anything, you don't need to know scripting. It's already created. Just use it. Right-click this VM, I want to do this and that. Or right-click this network switch, I want to create it. Whatever. So this is logging in business, sorry.
to cut down. But for small medium businesses and for folks who just trying to get into dabble into automation, this is a really good place to start. Right out of the box, not all the plugins are free. You do get a lot of them though, and there's a whole VMware Exchange in which you can go download them, install them, start playing around with them. But the biggest ones right out of the box is like the VMware integration. So you can kind of orchestrate multiple vCenters and do patching across all of them through one interface rather than having to go through using it just through the each vCenter individually if you're not using link mode or anything like that. You can also do scheduled tasks through here as well. You know, if you do have a particular backup solution you like, you can start doing that through here and you kind of get a handle of that automation without having to buy the whole VRA suite and everything else. So that's one of the really good use cases there. Now all of the APIs in VRO are Power CLI compatible as well. So you've got you know, a CLI interface that you can use through it. So something to put out there.
I'm sure that each one of you have some daily task, right? That we have time only once a week to get it. So start from this one. Find the orchestrator, if you own vCenter standard,
Left the meeting.
and create this flow. That's it. You can send email, it can send you a report, it can do whatever you want. So this is a great place to start, especially if you want. It can be very difficult. You can create anything that you want, including eats and whatever. Pretty complicated workflows. But from the general side, for the simple workflows, everything is automated for you. It's drag and drop services, drag and drop the services, chain them, go to the vCenter, check this VM, shut it off, create snapshot, whatever is needed, right? So one of the examples that has nothing to do with, let's say, VMware. Onboard new employee. Go create new user in Active Directory. It's belongs to HR, so we'll always add it to the HROU and things like that, right? So it's pretty simple, and you can open it to the receptionist with a form that you need to fill, and everything will be created for you. So, sky is the limit here. This is why I said it. And it's definitely the tool that we will use from the self-service portal to orchestrate things that are not available out of the box. And we can connect it to many other services that we can enable through the plugins. Any questions about orchestrate? Or automation piece, self-service?
Are there any limits to the licensing on it? If you're not.
vCenter standards, you own it. That's it.
Okay, everything's there.
Yes. It will be included in addition with vRealize automation. But my assumption, if you go into the vRealize automation, you definitely already own vCenter standard. So
yeah, and I would say this too, is that when you go to the VRA side of things, VRA is always going to recommend that you use the embedded version of the orchestrator. So there are some features and functions, like for example, vCenter integration. VRO will actually give you a whole list of options that you could do directly with the vCenter if you have the standalone orchestrator. So you'll actually find a lot of places that do VRA will actually also have a standalone orchestrator with different workflows that are more geared towards the vCenter folks than, let's say, the folks who are doing, you know, self-service provisioning and everything through VRA, VRO.
Great. So operation side. Operation side is pretty difficult. If we're talking about virtual environments, everything is virtual, everything is dynamic right now, so everything is a moving part, and we need to follow all those moving parts So operation is critical in the virtual environment. And from the operational view, we need to do a few things. And I simplified it to, I think, single slide, hopefully. We need to understand the current state, what's going on with the VMs, what's going on with, I will call it a workload. It doesn't have to be traditional VM, Windows, Linux, it can be containers or anything else. So I need to understand what's going on with my workloads, find them, and optimize them. And at the end, I need to assign a dollar sign. So I need a key to all my metrics, CPU, memory, storage, to assign dollar sign to show you back to the information in the cloud basics, at least to show you how much you spent. Before charging and everything else, at least show you what exactly is going on. And this is the side that operations management will cover from the VMware perspective. Any questions about operations management? I shrink it to a single slide. Cool. Anybody running operations management? 1, 2, 3. So let's go to the software-defined network. And we will cover what we're doing today, how we're running it today, what basically NSX is providing NSX services, and then we will go to SMB size and configurations and everything around it. So NSX is changing the environment. Today, you definitely have VLANs dedicated for tiers, hopefully. So you will have web tier, application tier, DB tier. But once I'm inside, even if my perimeter is fully protected, once I'm inside, there is nothing to stop. And this is one of the things that virtualization can change. This is a workload. It's running on the host. I can protect it directly on the host. Why it should go far away to my firewalls or whatever to understand what's going on. And the same concept will continue with networking. So if this is my reality, how I can change it? NSX will, you're already doing network virtualization, right? Standard switch, distributed switch, it doesn't matter. You're already doing network virtualization. Layer 2, but you're already doing it. So NSX will extend the capabilities of distributed switch. NSX will create a routing settings. NSX will allow distributed firewall settings on every host. And some services are host-based. It means that it will run on a host, on every host that you have. And for example, from the firewall perspective, if I can squeeze from every host 20 gigs of throughput, and I have 4 nodes, that means that I have a firewall that can support 80 gigs of throughput. This is pretty huge, right? And if I will grow, this is exactly what will happen. So back to my perimeter firewall, now my perimeter firewall should handle only north-south traffic. All the east-west traffic inside my data center should be covered with distributed solution based on the VMs. This is the optimization that we can create. It's pretty easy. Think about it. Today we're running between 20 to 100 VMs per host. Why I should go all the time outside for routing, for security, for any reason, right? So this is what we can bring. And the great thing that we can extend it between sites and clouds, keeping the same concepts. But the extension side, we will touch it a little bit later. So NSX will provide me a platform, will provide all those services to my workloads. And it will change the way we're working with our environment, right? Everything will become logical switches logical tiers. This platform will enable all the services, even the routing and networking between the workloads. If I need to go outside, I will go outside, north-south traffic. And definitely I need to connect to some shared services, and we will enable those services as well. Let me touch a few ways. So NSX will allow me basically to create different ways, will allow me to create applications even between different tiers and protect only the applications even if it's in the same VLAN or logical switch or the same construct. I can create rules. This is my web tier, this is my app tier, this is my DB tier, but this is my HR application. So only HR application can communicate with each other, even if it's in the same logical topology. So this is the way I can enable those services. I can create rules, which services I can use from the outside, DCP, DNS, whatever, our usual services, backup, antivirus, all those services that we usually use, and I can connect it once again to Active Directory and say, okay, to my terminal services, only the users from this OU, and let's play the same game, this is my HR application, so only HR OU can access those services, right? And this is something that is pretty critical, especially for security reasons. So I can create topologies based on my summer perimeter firewall. I definitely need it. But inside, I will create dedicated firewalls for every VMUG that I have on the VM. So if I have a VM with multiple VMUGs, I can apply multiple policies, front and back end, and so on. I can play with all the settings as much as I can. It can be enabled for my HR application or PCI application, compliance-based settings, whatever is needed, whatever you have in mind, I can create with NSX. Great thing that we're not providing everything. IDS, IPS solution is impossible, and this is why I said NSX is basically a platform. NSX is a platform that will enable injection of additional services. So if you have IDS, IPS solution and some service or HTTP traffic should go through those services, I can map it. And from the NSX perspective, we will do everything in the background. So we will have our services to take the packets, move to this VM, and send it to the network. And you don't need to reroute or rethink your network. Okay, we will do it internally inside the memory. So it's a huge benefit. We will run service VMs on every node, on every host, and we will enable these services for you. There is a video example that I will skip, how to create application, how to map application, how to apply firewall policies, and so on, but we will share this slide, so you can go and play and check these videos. And anyone attended VMworld? Okay. So we introduced, previous VMUG was VMworld Update. Yep.
So we talked
Okay, great.
about
So you touched on App Defense? Yeah? Yep. Great. So now, integration with App Defense, a few words about App Defense, quick recap. App Defense is our services that based not from the infrastructure side, so not from the NSX side, it's based on the VM side from workload to understand what exactly this workload is doing. So we can understand if it's a SQL server or DHCP server or whatever. And now we can create and raise flags based on what we see. So if this workload was identified as a SQL, now we can see all the processes on the SQL server. And if something happens out of the scope what SQL should do, for example, suddenly, I don't know, FTP services run, we will raise a flag. And NSX can respond to this flag. If something happened and you didn't allow it, or you didn't make this change, we can block this VM to access your network. And things like that. So now we can dive to the process and basically manage it from different views, from the workload view and from the infrastructure view. Microsegmentation, second edition. So to give you like a big picture of what's happening, what's enabled, what we can do, think about it like we have an NSX platform. Now you can enable networking services, routing and everything. So if you have different VMs on the same host, routing will happen on the node. Routing will happen right here. So if this VM wants to talk, this is HR VM, wants to talk to web, wants to talk to application service, and they on the same host, everything will happen on the same host. The packet will never leave the host. Okay? So I don't need to go outside. All my routers, all my networks are synced, and hosts know about all the services. Next session we will learn how they're doing it, but this is the reality. This is what will happen. Now I can enable the firewall services, but I can enable edge firewall services as well, and manage all my environments. Any question here? Like for somebody it's science fiction, or we already understand and live in it? Yeah? Networking guys.
Oh, we already got it working.
Hmm?
We already got it working.
And definitely the services side.
Can we go back there?
So the big picture?
Sure. Have still a couple of questions. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you requirements and constraints when it comes to taking your virtual network and then plugging it all the way down into like the cap switch, your actual switch ports that your users go down to. You know, what are the options when it comes to, okay, I want to go this route and I'm going to take it all the way to the switch ports that my endpoints are connected to.
And I will touch it,
Okay.
not briefly, I will touch it a lot. And the next thing, as I said, we will talk about implementation models and different scenarios, so definitely we will touch it. So I will keep running for now. So think about NSX, and I said, we don't care how we can stretch this environment. We can stretch it between sites, between countries. We don't really care if you provide the same network. In some cases, we will use the SD-WAN solutions to enable it or optimize it. And this map is pretty cool, but think about it that if you're running VMware, full stack, right, including NSX, all our cloud partners are running exactly the same thing. So now you can extend these services to any cloud that you want and move the VMs. And you don't need to change anything on the VMs. So you can move the VMs back and forth without any change. Not reformatting the VM, no IP change, and in some cases, not all of them, so a quick remark, you don't need even to change the security policies for the VMs. So this is the big picture, two big pictures. So touching the SD-WAN, and we already covered from the first steps how we doing it. So now we can optimize all our lines. So we can optimize our cable provider, and we can optimize our MPLS providers, and we can manage the traffic that needs to go to specific locations. So if this is my branches or my site, now I can create a different maps of how the connection is working, and we will do all the things, how to optimize and how to work on every line. Definitely you will see this result. This is exactly the map that you will see. But we will do it for you. You just need to apply the policies, how things should be. And if I will slice this, so there is a lot of services from the lines or solutions that we can plug to our services up to the management plane. And the management plane is cloud-based. So once I can configure my SD-WAN, I can ship my virtual machine or my actual router, physical router, if it's small site, something like that. I can ship it to the site, and the policy will be applied immediately as this device will show up on the network, and all the policies will apply to this service. So it's different model of management, and definitely a different type of management as well. But what we will get is pretty amazing, the optimizations that we can make. Right, so this is the solutions without optimization. This is the solution with 2% packet loss, this Dell Cloud optimization, for example. And this is the results that we can get to. And we're doing a lot of error correction algorithms behind the scenes, and duplicating the packets on the lines, and combining the packets on the other side to make sure that it always optimized as possible. The cloud orchestration model, once you access it, you have your own environment to configure all the policies, all the settings, and basically provision the services. So once the box is shipped, anyone can attach, let's say, a certificate to the box, and once certificate match the box configuration, all the policies will be enabled, and this box will be identified on your orchestration side. And talking about some changes, right? So, yeah, you can create your own configuration between the sites, but we just said that a lot of things changing. Voice over IP, cloud host, Amazon, Office 365, Box, and so on. So many services that we use out of our network. So from the SD-WAN perspective, we created a hub as close as possible to all these cloud providers, and now we can optimize the traffic through our gateways. So you will have the best access possible to all those services. Make sense? If you're already connected to the internet and we already have the gateway as close as possible, now between these two gateways we can optimize the traffic. And this is how we're doing a lot of things, and this is a huge change for many services. And definitely we will enable error correction and downtime and packet duplication and many other services from the lines that we have.
One thing that probably should be emphasized here would probably be site provisioning time. I don't know if anybody else here has stood up an MPLS site, but did they know the 90-day waiting for LEC email? Getting it from like CenturyLink or Sprint or whatever, going, oh yeah, we'll look at your building in 3 months.
Thank you.
This is what, like 15 minutes?
Yes. And this is a huge change. This is a huge change. This is why you saw the explosion of the SD-WAN solutions. It's not, we have connections, we have lines, but the services and time to configure the services, time to create the branch is a big pain. Okay, so basically SD-WAN will resolve the pains and much more.
Something I'll bring up here too is that one of the things that what's really nice with having Eric here too is that Dell has hardware that you can put Dell Cloud on. So VMware takes the software, they can provide the hardware. You can do that as a virtual appliance or part of a customer provided endpoint like a switch of some sort. I think VMware has a white box as well.
Yeah, there's a couple different things.
Yeah.
Different models.
I have a slide that's not in the deck, so I'll let it later, but I will cover it quickly. VMware bought Dell Cloud something like almost a year ago, something like that. Definitely Dell Cloud was an independent company. And as independent company, they had distinct solutions, right? So they had actual hardware, actual... Louder.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, okay.
Any question? Yes, no?
I think we were talking more on the Dell side of things.
We're actually looking at implementing some of this. And we're trying to get numbers. So
Numbers from what? From the
pricing per site cost.
So can you share maybe the use case in which you guys?
Oh yeah, all GCI retail stores, right? We are an MPLS provider, but not everywhere, right? There's still vestiges of like state law that says, oh, GCI can't run wires in this area, like Seward or Wasilla or whatever. Like we can run a cable modem, but we can't run MPLS because of Muni whatever in Palmer or Seward or even in some places in Anchorage, right? But then again, with SD-WAN, it's not really MPLS or commodity internet. It's just keep adding things to the blender until it tastes good, or it tastes really bad and then you throw it out and try again. But yeah, the primary issue we have is that using a universal CPE opens up a lot of doors as far as having like a hypervisor.
Universal CPE, you can think about it like a switch with the BIOS that you can load anything on top of it. Okay? So you
it's a vSphere host.
Yes. So you can load Dell Cloud VM, for example, or whatever.
Or all kinds of other weird stuff that the marketing department finds cool or exciting. Yeah. So. Yeah.
And we, at the Alaska USA, when I worked there, we were using SD-WAN, we were using Polari as the vendor, but there was definitely a push to start looking at Dell Cloud once VMware took them, simply because of the fact that, you could lower your footprint at the branches. Alaska USA has over 100 branches, and we definitely needed the ability to use, commodity internet, LTE,
As a backup?
as a backup, tertiary, and also have multiple providers. So whether it was VCS and GCI, or if it was CenturyLink or somebody else in the lower 48, we could, not have to rely on one particular vendor to give us access, so that we can integrate them with the rest of our network.
Working for a service provider, relying on only one provider is a mistake. I wouldn't do it. It's just good practice. The irony of this is that I actually got a similar failover system to work with just PAN-OS like 4 years ago, using some absolutely screwball mishmash of BGP and floating static routes. SD-WAN appears to be a bit easier than that. Like you don't need to have like an IE level understanding just to get it to work, for starters, which is nice.
Right. Hence, going back to the software design.
Yeah.
The ability of giving someone who's not that level of understanding, to do all this stuff.
Yeah, like, are we ever going to have that in GNOME or Barrow or whatever Barrow is called now, or Bethel, right? The answer is no, and if you give them a box that they can turn on and it will phone home, you're way better off.
ask me later about the pricing. We have a dedicated team for the SD1 piece. Once again, bought the company VeloCloud almost a year ago. They had full solution. So they had hardware, software, cloud, management infrastructure, all these hubs at the cloud providers. So back to the question, if we still have this VeloCloud white boxes, yes, we still have them, and it will fully change in Q1 next year. All the boxes will be transferred to Dell as a manufacturer. All. So now we have this virtual enabled solution, right? So basically that we can load the virtual VeloCloud on any CPE. But in Q1, everything will be Dell branded and Dell enabled. And I have the details. I think it's public and it's published. Exactly the sizes and everything, the throughput difference between the boxes. So I can have the slide later and share it with you. But the difference on the boxes is number of ports it can support and the throughput. So there is a small box, medium, big one, and from that point you can use a server to run a VeloCloud solution if you have a lot of throughput and configuration. So it's not that complicated. And definitely, as VMware, everything is enabled on the virtual layer, so you can always use a VM to enable all these services. And it's already a virtual appliance, so you can download and enable it on any disparate environment. There is some difference from the activation point. Once you have a physical box with actual MAC addresses and everything, you can just plug your network, your MPLS or whatever solution to the internet, and from that point we will get all the configurations and enable this box. If it's a virtual appliance, it's a little bit complicated, right? So there is 2 more additional steps that you need to know about if it's a virtual appliance. Basically that. So it's not that complicated. And the benefits are pretty clear, right? If we can enable and improve video, we can definitely do the same on the phone lines and any throughput that we do. The way we will provide you the information and the way we test on our environment, it's always more than one connection. And you will see the failovers on the line and how it happened and how we can optimize the overall experience of the connectivity between the sites. Okay, so even if you had a drops or even if you had bad line, we will keep the information running. We're running a lot of algorithms and protocols behind the scene to enable it. Many retail companies, many call centers will use VeloCloud solution. Critical for voice. And the amazing thing for voice, even if we had a drops between one line to the second line, the user will not feel. This is something unique to the VeloCloud. You will not see any difference or any faults. In a general, back to the data center, networking site will enable us to check the networking topology, right? So we will learn about the network, what you have today. We can, from that point, enable the firewall services or security services, or how you can optimize your network. How many logical networks do you need to create everything that you want, right? So in some cases, you want to simplify the environment. In some cases, you want to make it more secure. But this is network inside will learn about your network and provide all the information. It will learn about the east-west traffic. It will learn about north-south, who's talking to who, map the applications, enable and get all the flows between our services, VMs and physical. We don't care at this stage. But we will get you all the information for the assessment, and definitely you can keep running Network Insight to manage your network in the next stages. And Network Insight will include operations side for the NSX platform. So it will know about all the NSX constructs and reports if anything will happen to them. And we will touch what we have inside and all those NSX pieces in a few minutes. You want a 5-minute break or keep going?
5 minute break, we can 5 minutes.
And the next phase we will talk about the actual configurations, specifically for the SMB. Didn't know that I started. Oh my.
Where do those books go?
He actually wrote in one of them, so I gave him that one.
Oh, he's got that one?
Yeah, and I've got the other one.
Do you have the other CD? Yes.
Wayne was gonna really hammer and help us get some for everybody.
I just wanted to bring them. Yeah, I had all three of them. You can actually download them.
Yeah.
But I really did.
I have easy access to it.
So yeah, for you guys on the phone, we're just taking a 5-10 minute break here, and then we'll be right back on.
So it's like.
If there's any questions, anything,
On the server, so
let us know.
sending drivers to the server, and what sending drivers are. Anything that you can make me change. It's free, it's totally free. Monitoring, alerting, reporting, that's all free. Yeah. And now remember, some of your servers may already be licensed for it. It's kind of more of a common practice for me when porting servers, just to have that license built there.
I have not been licensed. It's great.
Okay.
It's like,
Just enterprise.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. When you do scan your network, like I did this with Chuck Hartman over at OSS, we did that for him and all of his factories. And it was a crapshoot with like 50-50. Like some of them had something.
yeah, I didn't order it.
That went really long.
Yeah, I highly recommend. It's fine to add the VxRails to OME.
Oh, no.
For alerting perspective, but definitely don't use it to touch.
Oh, no. I don't do this really for monitoring sets, so we have a bunch of VMs that are a bunch of Dell servers.
Right. And it's great for where people have been using it a lot for, especially slower links, where they, a lot of the state organizations, they have offices all over the place. So it's really nice because it's a centralized place they can go to see it.
So does this? Question number 2, how hard is it
So
to get?
here, I didn't make the
How hard is it to
CD.
get standard and price license for Drive?
Pretty simple. Just send me the service tags, the ones you want. Oh, standard to enterprise?
So you can express enterprise.
Okay, so Express doesn't come with the hardware part, so we have to send
It's already in there.
the hardware part's in there, so it's just like,
It's a 730.
Okay.
So the part of the drive, part of the board.
So,
Yeah, the December thing is the first.
just send me the service tag, and I'll send it out to my team, I'll get you up on it. It's not very
Something, but.
especially
Pretty good.
GCI.
That one was just.
Okay. Which resume?
It's Eric.
Needed you sooner rather than later.
Yeah, look at that. Fresh.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, just shoot me that with all your service tags, and we'll get it turned on. Oh, yeah.
We have one machine.
Also that track.
Yeah, we have one machine we want to use for that's
Yeah.
John,
the first one was, the machine was
pretty
purchased.
good an update one.
When the machine was purchased, we had two machines that were purchased. They were put strong check boxes like so they express that.
Yeah.
But after the
This is awesome, server, we put a bunch of fails, and then the teeth are coming out of the pants into it. Or, okay, when Pam says an SSD fails, that means that they can figure out how
That's
to
why I
work
think
it.
for the January one.
So they're not bad.
Hopefully it'll be more.
We're gonna start with that thing, and then you can work on it. They do go down.
How do we want to present this one? Because nobody's volunteering.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's pretty handy, it does full reporting and stuff too.
Well, it was part of the extra on that
Essential?
That's why I even sent my previous staff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why. Yep.
Back in those days, they used it, we actually had one for a long time.
But I think I want to do that for the January one.
Watch.
Well, I use here, when I worked here, we use Essentials for a little while, but man, I didn't like the interface, I thought it was clunky. I don't know.
I've never brought Essentials.
Quarterbacks.
Case.
Come out from Denver.
Essentials, I don't know, Enterprise doesn't tend to.
Presentation.
So, yeah, so.
Okay. I gotta figure out what you
I can imagine how it is. $29.70, yeah, okay. So, yeah, my favorite server was $29.50.
I hated it because I paid my life in future network.
Oh, sure.
And it's like, oh yeah, plug in the 2950, what did you want?
First,
Is it green or is it gray, okay?
Showing how.
Yeah.
Because back then, the seven, the AMD processor works, but the memory show.
Yeah.
So it had better memory function.
You know, that should fill out a good chunk of the time, and then if we wanted to circle back.
The 805s.
John, you're reminiscing about big back.
805s we had. We had 805s here, but the problem is we want to do it at Intel and, you know, like the VMware.
No, NSX.
They don't want each other.
Yeah, you couldn't mix them.
Yeah, get mix and match.
We had 805 and then we went to.
That's what you need to see for that.
Or no, the 970s. Our previous.
Right.
I have to figure
The
out.
one that
So I have
pulled
to
out
do
of 104, that was the 85 one.
No.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I have it on those. Really cool ones I haven't got.
So that's actually newer.
I want to do a whole.
Slightly.
I still have that Waco server at 750.
I also want to dig into a lot.
Yeah.
If I ever get,
Because I think.
No, that's
Cole
not
Tracy
gonna
to, yeah.
Well, you guys got your new cluster coming. It's being built right now.
Yeah.
We've got two clusters coming.
Yeah, they forgot to order that chip with it again.
That's why, well, only one cluster's been gone.
I need to work with Darius.
Going through the process.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
almost like the Chicago built that 5 node cluster. Yeah, it's still sitting in Chicago. They were like, oh,
Chicago's
we
brand.
should order some like network gear to connect this and stuff. Well, they're like, how much is it gonna cost? The capital. And it's like, oh my god. You're like, well, you're not gonna. Because I'm not gonna go to the warehouse and find a pair of switches like I did the last. No, that was the first VX trailer installed. That was great.
Oh, yeah. So it's me and Dan, and then Gillian is the public sector rep. So that's the three of us who live in Alaska. Yep, I work with Dan.
Okay, good.
Talk to him.
I'll just send you, request for quote then on that.
Yeah, and you'll probably get it back from, it'll probably come from Keith Jessup, but
Okay.
it'll come from somebody.
I recognize that name too.
Yeah, so Keith is Dan's inside guy.
Yeah.
My inside guy changed it, so I don't remember it anymore. It's all me.
Cause I,
Yeah, and the other one we're gonna be looking at is the UCVE here as well. Yeah, the Dell 4600 UCVE.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We're looking at.
trying to look for the one with the highest per core speed.
Yeah.
Well, let's go with 16 core.
I don't care about that counting. Yeah, that's,
Lower core, higher speed.
But they're all, I looked at the.
traffic decryption,
Oh.
right?
Yeah,
But,
middle stack.
yeah.
I actually looked those up, or I was actually looking.
It's got VSNI, but again, 4 gigahertz is better because the VM series would only use 2 cores and then 4 with the 200 series license. So this means more cost and faster.
Yeah. Well, I got a buddy who did core server, of course, one block. And they've got special rules about their cores now, so. even when you
Oracle's
cross-
just special.
Oh my gosh, so if it ships from us with the cores in BIOS locked down ahead of time, then it can do
2.3.
Yeah, like if you buy it from me and we have our engineering team like lock it down to 2 cores, then you only have to buy 2 cores. But if I send it to you and then you go and lock it down to 2 cores, that's not good enough. And I tried to make the argument like, well, they can just go and change it. Well, it doesn't matter. This is so ridiculous. You know what it costs anymore? Maybe $50 or something for us to pull it back out of the
They have 3 different versions, they have 2 different versions, they have the N version, the I version, and the D version, I think.
Yeah, it's a Xeon D.
Well, no, I mean, the Xeon D, 2100 series,
Yeah.
it's 2146, 2.3 gigahertz, 2.3 gigahertz. That's
Yeah, the
16
problem is
cores,
the 4600 product sheet doesn't say anything about which.
Well, they don't tell you what.
Yeah,
they
they
tell you
say
the
Xeon D
And then you have to figure out which one you want
and
to
product
use.
details, sales pitch.
Yeah,
It's like, that's not a specification.
because here's the 2141i processor.
Yeah. That's 2.2, which is all right.
2.2, the top one I found so far is
Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and get started again.
megabit cache, it's like a megabyte cache.
So, the next phase
Big gigahertz max.
will be more focused on SMB use cases, configurations, and things like that. So let's see what we have on the deployment models, right? And there's sometimes people think that it's way too complicated, way too many things that will be added. Network virtualization is scary in general, right? So there is a lot of things from the networking side, overlay, underlay, why we should do it. So let's talk about all these points and understand where we're standing. And specifically for the VMware side, and if it's complicated or how we want to do it. So definitely we all want a big apartment. We all want dedicated place for everything. We want bedroom in the bedroom and a restaurant in the restaurant and things like that. But sometimes it's not really impossible, and our bright picture of everything separated and dedicated and tons of services for different workloads, management cluster, DMZ, whatever is needed in the environment, sometimes it's not really possible, and we need to deal with the reality. And reality can be different. And we will say that this is a collapsed cluster, and we need to figure out how to configure our environment. So from the NSX perspective, and we will touch some Vista points, but from the NSX perspective, let's break it down to the services, right? What we have, what NSX includes. So from the data plane, we have the services, our distributed services that live on the host. And this is what we touched from an NSX perspective. The distributed firewall, load balancing, router, logical switches, all this stuff. So, on the data plane, there is VM form factor that will provide load balancing services and things like that. On the host, there is distributed firewall, let's say the extended distributed switch. This will rely on the host. As a VMs, we will have DLR, distributed logical router. We added everything distributed and logical. And NSX controllers. This is the guys that will know everything about the network. This is the guys that will learn about the networks. This is the backbone brain. And this is the additional VMs. And definitely I have my NSX manager and I have my vCenter. And all the services. So this is the NSX piece by piece. But do I need all these pieces right away? How I can configure? Will I enable all the services from the beginning? No, not necessary. So we need to understand what we want to enable, what stage, and how we want to do it. Never mind, I skipped the slide. So, for the distributed firewall, and this is a big use case for VMware, I think that almost 85% from our customers will learn about network virtualization from the distributed firewall piece. And after that, almost 50% will use all the services of NSX, and other will still using only the distributed firewall, if it makes sense. So, this is our big environment. And in the big environment, we want to have dedicated services for the management cluster. And this service will run, I don't know, Active Directory, vCenter, platform service, and many other things. Is anyone here have a dedicated management cluster? Only one. So this is one of the examples of the big and great apartment that we all want, but sometimes it's impossible. So the best practice, we'll see. We need a dedicated cluster for the management pieces. Everything. You can see here NSX controllers, NSX manager, vCenter, and all other services from the management perspective. That's all you do with it. There is a workload cluster. So our VMs, our production VMs, will run only here. There is a dedicated edge cluster. So if I will connect it back, you can think about it like this is where my east-west traffic will happen. And if it needs to go out, it will go to this cluster, and from this cluster outside to the internet. Make sense? So these guys are connected from the backbone perspective to a single switch. So if I need to connect it, so let's say my host will have two connections to these guys, and that's it. And if I need to go outside, I will have a virtual network that will connect to the edge VM, and edge VM will have one connection to my workload network and one connection to my internet network. Okay, this is why we don't want to mix all the services on all the nodes. Once again, this is the best practices, right? And in addition, I will have some standby hosts that will jump in case we need redundancy or a change. For the middle size, we will say the same thing, but at this stage, we collapsing the management and the edge cluster to a single 3-node configuration. So basically, we're taking all these nodes and all these nodes and mixing everything up here. It's still something that we can do. It makes sense. Something that we need to think about from the security perspective, DMZ perspective, and all these things, but this is doable. And additional nodes for the workloads. And definitely, we have only 4 or 3 nodes. 4 nodes. This is everything that we have. So at this stage, we need to run all our services, because we want to enjoy from the full stack. But this is our small environment, so we need to run everything on a single node. And the case is here that we need to enable resource reservation to allow all the SLAs and all the configuration to be valid, enough resources in the right way. But it's definitely doable and it's definitely possible. Now, to the use cases and deployment models. So, if we want to enable only security piece, we want to enable only the distributed firewall to all our VMs, I don't need to change anything on my physical network. And I don't need to change anything on my logical configuration. The only thing that I will add to my environment, the only thing that I will add to my environment is NSX Manager, a single VM. And we will talk about the size of this VM in a second. But I need a single VM that will enable the services on the distributed switch, and from that point I'm done. I don't need to change anything. If I will go to optimization for the east-west traffic, at this stage, I will enable a VM that will manage the perimeter firewall and east-west, north-south traffic flow. Okay, still, nothing changed on my physical network or on my logical configuration. It's additional 2 VMs that will jump to enable and optimize these services. And everything can be done on a single, on 4 nodes, in a single configuration, single vCenter. And if I will deploy to the full stack, I will have to enable something that we call VXLAN. How many people know about VXLAN? One? Nada? Great. Everybody, I'm assuming, heard about VLAN. So, VXLAN. So, VXLAN will add the X in the middle, and that's it. So VXLAN will enable logical services. I will require a single VLAN from my underlay. I will create a big pipe on the single VLAN from the underlay, and now I can create 16 millions of logical networks. So exactly the same concept as VLAN. I can take a switchboard and I can enable many VLANs on the same port. Now I can take a single VLAN and from the NSX perspective enable 16 million networks. Yeah? So if you're using vSwitch, VMware distributed switch, you're creating the port groups, right? Port group for this network, port group for VLAN number X, 10, 100, and whatever. So now we will create exactly the same, and we will assign the numbers, and it will be enabled only on the logical side. From the physical side, there is no change. And that means that we don't need to run and change our hardware every time that we add in new network. We need only a single VLAN from the underlay. Everything else will be done on the logical layer. This is the power of the VXLAN. This is not VMware VXLAN. This is a common protocol today. And once again, don't jump on the VXLAN or any other different implementation, because right now we're already thinking about Genie, for example. It's just the way to create these logical networks. You don't care about the protocol. We We can use VXLAN, we can use Geneve. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? It doesn't matter. This is the way we're doing it behind the scenes.
Well, Geneve is kind of dubious at this point. Like VXLAN's been adopted for a bunch of other stuff, like EVPN. So it seems to be a little bit more of an open standard until Red Hat starts to be a little bit more friendly.
To Geneve or to VXLAN?
To Geneve.
To Geneve, exactly.
VXLAN runs on like everything. I'm sure even dishwashers will at some point, but it's not really all that bad. VMware's implementation is a little proprietary though, because the standard itself is multicast only.
Yep.
Unicast is not a bad thing to add, just FYI, please don't remove that. But in this case, it's mostly standard conformant from what we've seen so far.
But the general idea, don't jump and don't touch to this, like how exactly it will be done, what kind of protocol we'll be using behind the scenes. We can use many different protocols, and we're already working on different one to enable more services.
And what about getting rid of layer 2?
Huh?
What about getting rid of layer 2?
Can we get rid of layer 2?
Yeah, what about it? Geneve and VXLAN are just layer 2 encapsulation protocols, just like GRE is.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will move to a more cloud networking model where we don't use any of those things.
I'm just thinking how quick we can do it. It's possible.
It's moving.
It's moving there, but it will take time. There's no standards yet, at least on this side. But it's getting there. I don't know what's going on. The slides are moving by themselves.
Somebody who's not really a network guy. What are you talking about? Are you talking about something that's just built in layer 3?
Yeah, so eventually the distributed logical router at some point for cloud networking is going to have to replace the VDS in its entirety. No more VLANs, they all went away, and we all agreed to say goodbye to broadcast, multicast, layer 2 overlay technologies, and just go to something a little bit more stable, right? He seems to be going in that direction, slowly.
So for everybody, I will recap it. So today, VMware got not one solution for the network virtualization. We have two solutions for network virtualization: NSXV and NSXT. I will not go to explain what it was, for how it's and for what reason. But basically, we have NSXV that enables all the services based on VXLAN, dedicated for vSphere, using some unique functions like unicast and not only multicast from the VXLAN side, and NSXT. NSXT is more open, but using Geneve only. And this is what our cloud partners adopted. And this is what they're working on, right? So the two systems can connect to each other. There is no threat limitations for that. But basically, we have two solutions. The main reason is for container-like workloads. Okay, this is the main reason. Container-like workloads in container environments, for example, Kubernetes, and our integration with Kubernetes, or Pivotal, and all these names that you may hear about them, that creating this change in the workload, in the application layer, they very dynamic, include a lot of information inside the application process, and they can enable and open services by themselves, and this is something that enables an NSXT from the operational side. NSXT will not have it. And this is why NSXT is basically dedicated for container networks and things like that. And this is why we see this huge demand from the cloud side. Cloud is heavily using containers nowadays. Okay, and this is the main reason that most of our customers on the container side, in the cloud side, will use NSXT for containers and things around, if it makes sense. If you have any questions, we will expand it. So for the security, what is the size of NSX Manager, right? I already have my vCenter, can be tiny vCenter, I have small configuration, so this will be my size of my vCenter, and this will be size of my NSX Manager, and I'm done. This is everything that I need to enable distributed firewall services on this environment. And this is exactly the reason that most of our customers will start from distributed firewall. Most of them. No change. Very simple. And very heavy, right? I think that I explained the function of distributed firewall enough, but if you have more questions about dedicated firewalls for the VMs, feel free to ask. If I will jump to north-south traffic optimization, basically everything stays exactly the same. The only thing that will change is the configuration of the network side, right? So the connections and trunks and things like that, this is the only thing that will change. Everything else will stay the same. If I will go to the network virtualization side, come on. Okay. Sorry for that, guys. I don't think it's clicker. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. Let's keep it. I will run it like that. In this view, it should not jump fail. So, sorry for that, guy. If I will go, I will say to the full stack, right? In that case, I need to create this VXLAN. I need to take this single VM from my underlay, create this logical switches, create this VXLAN. So VXLAN will add something to my network packet. So I need to change the MTU size. I need to change my MTU size to 1600 at least, and hopefully everybody already have switches that also for jumbo frames and things like that. So just upgrade it to 9000 and you're good. But basically this is something that I need to change. And this is why usually this is the next phase after the security piece. In the security stage, I don't need to change anything. Everything is possible. I don't need to make any changes. Single VM, and I can enable advanced security with microsegmentation, connection to the Active Directory, and a lot of great things. Jumping to the logical network and changing the network, I will enable all the agility that I can create on the network side. I don't need to create VLAN every time that something changed. I don't need to reconfigure VMs, IP management for the VMs. I can move the VMs between the networks. So it will be much easier from the logical side, but I need to change the MTU side, enable the VXLAN, and maybe in that case, if I'm already doing it, the most common thing that will come up is rethinking the routing. Right? Now I need to route and optimize my network. So there is, let's say, architectural discussion that will come up at this stage, and folks that already did it or had a chance to do it definitely changed something. And you're already working with
Yeah.
right?
Well, right now we're moving more towards 8-way ECMP. Right now our NSX3 deployment is primarily, well, let's just call it pasture, I guess, for non-flexible workloads essentially. So we're already using V for it. Going with VT for everything else, but it works just fine for that. So 4-way ECMP, 4 separate clusters, give it an ESG, assign a DLR, and that way your traffic flow through the torus is actually pretty optimal. So for example, if I do a show route for anything with VXLAN right now, I get 4 vias, because the other 4 entries would come up with the other 2 clusters. Whereas OSPF, if you have a set of edges that are local to that 4, they're going to show up with a lower cost, meaning that you favor the local Tor over the one that takes more hops, and that's it. Just don't use them. As to say.
So what's the size of the configuration that I need once I'm going to this full stack deployment, for example? And I'm still in a 4-node configuration. My vCenter will be something like that. Definitely NFX Manager. Nothing changed from the NFX Manager perspective, so it will stay the same. NFX controllers. So now 3 NFX controllers will show up. And why 3? Anyone? Come on, it's examples. Why do I need 3 hosts?
Access.
Availability, redundancy, and so on. This is the brain of my network, right? So I need at least 3 controllers. I can have more. No need to have more. 3 controllers will support, I don't remember, million of VMs and flows. So you don't really need more than 3, but at least 3 for the redundancy perspective. They're pretty small. It's not a big VMs or something like that. So everything is stay light. And here is my edges for north-south traffic optimization. And in this case, it is not ECMP. It's still active-passive edge, and we will touch the ECMP configurations as well. Let's see if the presentation mode will stop jumping now. So vCenters, we all have vCenters, different configuration types. vCenter is embedded platform service. It can be embedded or external. For the small environments, I don't see any need to create external platform service. But once again, it's up to you.
Well, 6.7 changes 2, right? So 6.7, it all goes back internal.
Yeah, 6.7, we optimized a few things, so we don't really see any reason to create external PSC. But basically what the vCenter is from one side, this is the management, the UI, the web service, and in the background, the VM management and everything else. So up to 6.5, we asked to create dedicated vCenter and dedicated platform service, just to spread the workload on the VMs. And with all the optimizations that we made to the database, to the services, we improved vCenter in 30% and database almost in 70%. So it's almost 100 in general percentage improvement, so we don't really see the need to create separate VMs, but still, it's your choice. Once to combine things was very critical, we didn't have VMware appliance for that. It was based on the Microsoft licenses. So at some point, it was, for the sake of licenses, combination. But today there is no combination, so it's straight resources that you have. This is separate VMs, separate resources. So it's coming back to know your resources.
Did they recombine it back in 6.7?
What?
Did they recombine it back in 6.7?
Yes, for the 6.7, it was always combined, right? You could always, even in 6.5, you could install combined vCenter, vSPSC on a single node, but it was not recommended for production environments. 6.7 basically says, hey, we optimized the database, we optimized web UI, everything's HTML5, so it's much lightweight. So we basically said, hey, for certain configurations, just keep going, combine vCenter and PSC. Definitely, if you enterprise with, I don't know, 5,000 VMs, there is different requirements, and HA and vCenter HA, a lot of different things will come to the configuration. But back to the SMB, 6.7, keep it simple, single VM, will cover all the services. Make sense?
It doesn't run Windows anymore.
Sure.
Runs Postgres for both
Yes.
update manager and
Yes. Everything is combined. VMware Update Manager included, so everything is inside. So tiny sizes of VMs, sizes of vCenter. Tiny can manage up to 10 hosts, 100 VMs, very light configuration. Small, 100 hosts, 1,000 VMs, should cover most configurations of the SMB. Otherwise, I don't know why they call them SMB or which country they belong to. But basically, this should cover most of the configurations from the vCenter side. vSphere and all the services that we have inside the vSphere. So the goal here and the point of this slide was single point. If you think that you need to jump and have VMware distributed switch to enable any NSX service, this is not true. You can keep running your vSphere standard. Once you go into the NSX, NSX will provide you license for the VDS. And the same for the vSphere. So you can keep running your any vSphere. Once you want to enable the services and you have NSX license, you can enable VDS. Yes.
Where's vSAN come in here?
What is?
Which license do you need to enable vSAN? Let's say you just want to run several servers together and set up vSAN.
Any license of vSphere to enable vSAN. Any.
To build upon that, I mean, that's the foundation for your SDDC. So one of the things I'll be putting out here too is that VMware has this whole thing around their VMware validated design and how to build a software-defined data center. So, you know, the whole purpose is like you can build on top, you can take a vSAN ready node, you can build a 2-node or a 3-node cluster, get that going in your environment, or you could do something with vVols, which I think you have something on. And then we can once you get that into your environment, then you can lay down just the basic NSX kind of, here's the small business footprint of what that looks like. And then as you use and consume features, and it becomes more palatable for you to do so from a budget perspective, you can land on those other things to bring value through, you know, software-defined networking and whatnot. And eventually, you know, you could, you know, if it makes sense cost-wise, you know, instead of having a really expensive MPLS or Metro E kind of network, you're doing everything via SD-WAN and so forth for all your connectivity between your sites. So that's kind of the vision that SDDC brings and how you can look at commodities of scale, so you don't have to do it the old traditional way. You don't have to rely on, you know, your vendors like ATS and GCI and everything can provide all of those things for you in a MPLS circuit. You can do that at an SD-WAN level.
You can also do both, get commodity internet and MPLS, and use the one that costs less per gigabit per second for non-latency sensitive applications, which is what I've been seeing a lot more people.
Yeah, if you're an enterprise customer, like last USA was, they use MPLS as a, you know, for, you know, latency sensitive applications, and that's something that like Dell Cloud can do easily for you. And like Andrew said, you can build statistics around it, you can build rules around it to say, this is what I want to go on this site, and this is what I want to go to the internet, and I want it to use this link versus this link.
Yeah.
So just to give you time, it's 3:30 right now.
Yep. Not sure if we will have enough time for the visa piece.
Okay.
So, if you do a small cluster configuration, NSX will enable some functions by default. So once you enable NSX and you enable distributed firewall, you will lose access to any VM that you have. So it's a great thing to add service VMs to the exclusion list. And this is something that we should do from the beginning. And a lot of people forget about it and lock in the vCenter with the firewall rules and can't access to disable groups. So it's a funny thing, but one of the goals is definitely to change the configuration and exclude service VMs from locking. If you do everything in a single cluster, again, right? If you have different clusters, it's a different thing. CPU or memory configuration change is allowed. You can go and change the size of the VM if you think it's too big or too low. It's definitely something that you can do. So it's not mandatory numbers. Critical and definitely recommended in the production environment, always back up the NSX manager. If it's snapshots or even if it's the export file, and the NSX manager will provide you the export file with all the configuration. Definitely do it. So the vCenter always should be the first VM that will power up in case that all the system is down, right? So you have maintenance time, you shut down all the environment. Once you turn it on everything, vCenter is the first VM that should come up. NSX Manager will be the second VM that should come up. Okay. Everything else, Active Directory, and things like that will come up after that. Controllers will be the next. Controllers are locked down VMs. You can always open it, but it's locked down VMs, and that means that from the support perspective, changes on the CPU or memory are not allowed. And the controllers will require not that much memory or not that much disk space or CPU. It's pretty lightweight configuration. And once again, this is 3 VMs. The goal here, it's on this slide. I don't know, maybe it's next slide, but let's cover it here. So, no, it's here. If I have a cluster of 4 nodes or 3 nodes, and I have 3 controllers from the NSX side, I want to keep them separated on different nodes, right? Otherwise, I'm missing the point. So we have affinity and anti-affinity rules. So definitely create anti-affinity rule. It will be created automatically for you today. Still, check it in the vCenter if the rule is there. Always to keep NSX controllers separated on different nodes. DLR. So we touched about distributed routing. In the distributed routing, we have a router on every node that will help to optimize the network. If I have different VMs from different logical switches on the same host, the routing will happen on the node. Okay? But still, there is a control VM that's running for the routing that will go and sync with the physical network to understand what's going on, OSPF, BGP, whatever you're using, to exchange the routing tables, right? So DLR, at the end you will have two DLRs. One is active, one is passive, always, not always. In the configuration, this is the recommended configuration. Two DLRs. And definitely try to keep them separated from the vCenter environment and all the other VMs. Edge service gateways, the VMs that I can create, right? The VMs that will provide services such as perimeter firewall, load balancing, VPN, NAT services, and so on. I have a different sizes based on the configuration that I will use. So if I have ESGs for north-south traffic optimization, I can use a large size, and the large size means 2 CPUs, 1 gig of memory. This is the large size. So it's very light.
Yeah, that's doing it. Again.
Okay. So the large size, that's not to cover small data centers. We don't need anything else. And the large size here is a little bit confusing. The large size, 2 CPU, 1 gig of memory. For example, extra large size, why we need it and in which case we need it. If you want to enable layer 7 load balancer functions on the edge service, in that case you will have to go to the extra large size of the edge service. And in that case, basically edge service means VM form factor from the NSX service. So it's not running on the host. This is something that you can deploy unlimited numbers. 6 CPUs, 8 gigs of memory, and you can enable layer 7 load balancers. How you can choose which service size or what kind of service you need from the service perspective. Quick brief. If your performance less than 10 gig throughput and you don't care about optimization all the throughput from your environment, you can definitely go to, let's say, stateful case and use ESG in HA mode. If you don't care about stateful state, you can go to the ECNP mode. In ECNP mode, you can have a cluster of 8 edges that each one can give you, let's say, 10 gig throughput, so you can optimize the traffic for the north-south configuration to 80 gigs, and not for the SMB, right? The only case that we see it's cloud providers and network providers. This is the only case that we see, and even though the configuration that we're working with is for ESG services. So this is not something that we will see. DLR, standby DLR, active DLR, separate hosts, affinity, anti-affinity rules, created automatically. Still, double check it. ESG, CMP, definitely try to spread them between the nodes once again to keep everything in the best performance. vSphere itself, right? So high availability of the settings It's an open question, what you guys do in the data centers. If it's the usual configuration, like a slot policy, N+1, if one node fails, the VMs or vSphere will always provide a dedicated slots, enough space on the other nodes to enable the HA. If I will do something like that with 3 nodes, and I will say only 10% HA configuration, this is all that needed, I will not have enough space for my VMs, so that means I will lose my VMs, and this is not recommended on the 3-node configuration. You should have something like 33–35% recovery, right? So know your configuration. Making it failover, definitely not recommended, but something that you can do. In that case, all the VMs will move from the failed node. And that means that definitely the recommended HA policy will be N+1, or if you add in nodes, changing nodes, always keep the percentage that is actually available, right? So 10% it's a good configuration for 10-node configuration. Restart priority, we covered it, how it should be covered. HA calculations, you can do it by yourself. There is a bunch of Excel sheets and different configuration modes. So you just saw what you need for every configuration, especially in the SMB environment. So now check what you actually have. So if you have enough space, if you have enough memory, if you have enough resources, including HA, to enable those services. If you need, there is a bunch of information how to calculate the HA and all these services. Some NSX services will always block the configuration, so it will be reserved memory, reserved CPU. This is why it's so critical to know exactly what you're working with, how much services, resources you have available. If you use or like to use resource pools, anyone? Resource pools? Resource pools. So if you're using resource pools, be careful. Resource pools by design will block some reservations. So if you don't have enough, your VMs can struggle from the performance from the host. So you can have not enough resources to enable the services. Distributed switch. Keep it simple. So if you have a dedicated VLAN for the NSX services, from our perspective, you have a dedicated VTAP. Please try to, in a small configuration, please try to stick to a single VTAP. Don't go to multiple VTAPs or configurations like that. It will complicate the configuration and troubleshoot in a small environment. So keep it to a single VTAP. Use it in the failover mode, as simple as possible, and you're good. Now, if you start small, it doesn't mean that you can't expand it or grow it to any kind of configuration, right? So from the NSX perspective, we don't really care. There is no limit. You can always add more nodes, move the management cluster to dedicated cluster, and separate the services at the end. So compute capacity, throughput, anything that you need to grow is definitely possible to grow. If at some point you need additional services from IDS, IPS for service insertion, and you want to add more services, you can add the services, and definitely it will require more resources. So once again, separate the networks. DLR, NSX edges, if we have 2 active passive, in that kind of configuration, we will have active passive edge services to optimize north-south traffic. We can always add more services or add additional edges and stretch our networks between the sites, campus, or even the cloud if we have exactly the same configuration, and usually we have. So I hope it covered the SMB take on the NSX, how it should be implemented, how it should not be implemented, if it's possible, if it's not possible, the size of the controllers, the NSX manager. The only thing that I didn't touch is how, it's not a big question, how much resources NSX services on the host will take. For the distributed firewall, up to 2% from the CPU power. If you go into the full stack, it can go up to 10%, but usual state, without a big load or something like that, it will stay something around 5% from your overall CPU capacity. Memory, you know exactly how much memory you create. I think that's it. Taking you back to the full picture, hopefully that now it makes more sense from network and security perspective. My host, NSX services as a cluster, some services embedded inside the host, load balancers. It's a dedicated VMs connected to the same network that will enable the load balancing services. And it can be layer 4 load balancing. In that case, I don't need extra large VMs or something like that. Or I can go up to layer 7 load balancer with all the application checks and controls. And in that case, it will be in an extra large VM to have access to my web services, for example, or whatever, terminal services, anything that needed. The thing that I didn't cover, and I will keep it for now, and the app defense, if you covered it in VMware update, the app defense will plug in basically as external service, but it will plug in inside the NSX platform to enable a lot of settings. Questions, if you have any?
Guys, do you guys see how this kind of fits all together? Do you guys see any use cases for your particular scenario here?
I have a small environment, having servers, integrate them all. As probably a VCM first. Set up a very basic NSX type environment. VCM, get my speed, check it, make sure it's going to work with some older servers. That's my use case. So really, VCM is my priority. SD-WAN, so if I could come later, there are some branch sites, but matter of fact, we are having problems we were looking at so later. Not just like I can take my boss at it.
Yeah, one something at a time.
I need to do constant first.
For the SD-WAN?
No, first piece.
For the SD-WAN, it's pretty cool. Anything else? And definitely I will skip the vSAN piece. We will keep deep dive for the next session.
Yeah, we only have 12 minutes, so.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Tim, did you have any questions? Anyone online?
All right, Tim, we're gonna go ahead and close the bridge. If you have anything, let me know. Yeah, that was